Kathy's POV. Valentine's Day was the day that changed my life forever. I drove toward the packed supermarket, gripping the wheel tightly. My fingers were numb, not from the cold, but from exhaustion. Luna Helen had once again assigned me to buy ingredients for the grand feast tonight, a celebration I wasn't even allowed to attend as Kane's Luna. No, not his Luna. His maid. Luna Helen told me she would never see me as his Luna. Rather, I was just a servant to her. His disgrace. The woman his mother sneered at and the pack rejected. I should have been used to it by now, but today felt different. My body was heavier. My heart felt more fragile. Maybe it was because I was tired. Or maybe it was because, for the first time in years, I wondered what it would feel like to just leave. I never got the chance to finish that thought. A blaring horn echoed on the road, screeching tires, the world spinning. My chest slammed against the seatbelt as a crash erupted around me. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and my vision exploded into darkness. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling above me was a blinding white. I blinked repeatedly. My limbs ached as if they had been crushed under a mountain of bricks. Where am I? The faint beeping of a heart monitor echoed in the silence. I struggled to turn my head, only to wince as I felt a sharp pain in my skull. I started to panic. Then the door opened. "Kathy?" The familiar voice was gentle, filled with concern. "James." I was relieved as my adopted brother stepped inside. His dark eyes were filled with worry, and his doctor's coat was slightly wrinkled as if he had been here for hours. "You're awake," he breathed, rushing to my side. "How do you feel?" "Like I was trampled by a rogue stampede," I rasped. "What happened?" James sighed, running a hand through his hair. "A truck lost control and hit you head-on. You were lucky, Kathy. No broken bones, just some bruising and a mild concussion." Lucky. I nearly laughed at the irony. His fingers curled around my wrist, checking my pulse. "There's something else. Something important." My stomach twisted at his expression. "What is it?" James hesitated, then sighed. "You're pregnant." For a moment, the world stopped. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "Pregnant." "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "That's not possible. Kane said I couldn't." Kane was wrong. James' voice was firm. "The tests confirmed it. You're about 6 weeks along." 6 weeks. A tiny life growing inside me. A child, my child. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes as I pressed a trembling hand to my abdomen. Against all odds, the moon goddess had given me a miracle. Maybe this was a sign. Maybe this was how Kane and I could finally... A sharp laugh outside my door shattered my thoughts. "Can you believe she's still here?" A female voice sneered. "After everything, she still clings to that position." "I heard she bribed Elder Alyosha to forge the prophecy," another person said. "She's a fraud." Who cares about the prophecy? She was never good enough to be Luna. Everyone knows Kane only tolerated her out of duty. My heart clenched as the words sliced into me. They were talking about me again, just like they always did. I clenched my fists beneath the thin hospital blanket, forcing myself not to cry. James' jaw tightened. "Ignore them," he said softly. "They don't know the truth." The truth? No one ever cared about the truth. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe. 5 years ago, the Phoenix Mark had chosen me. The elders had bowed to the prophecy, declaring me the destined Luna. I had believed it meant something, that I meant something, but it had been nothing more than a cruel joke. Kane had never wanted me. His heart had belonged to Violet, the woman he believed had died saving me. And when she was gone, all he saw in me was a mistake. For 5 years, I had tried. I had swallowed my pride, endured the ridicule, hoping that one day he would look at me with something other than resentment, that he would see me not as a burden but as the woman who had always loved him. But the walls between us had only grown taller. And now I carried his child. Was this fate's way of giving us another chance, of telling us that, despite everything, we were meant to be? "I have a patient," James said. "I'll see you soon." I forced a smile. "Thank you." With that, he left the room. I clutched my stomach, trying to wrap my head around the idea. After years of being told I could never conceive, after years of suffering through Kane's coldness, the moon goddess had given me this miracle. Maybe, just maybe, this was the turning point I had prayed for. But even as I felt hopeful, I had my doubts too. Would Kane be happy? Would he finally look at me as something more than just the woman fate had forced him to marry? I pushed those thoughts away and reached for my phone. My fingers trembled as I dialed Kane's number. The call rang, once, twice. No answer. I tried again and again. Each unanswered call felt like another rejection, another slap in the face. Come on, Kane, just pick up. I hesitated before pressing the call button one more time when a sudden commotion in the corridor caught my attention. My head snapped toward the door as the urgent voices sounded through the thin walls. Something was wrong. For some odd reason, I was curious. What was going on? Ignoring the sharp ache in my body, I struggled to get out of bed. My legs wobbled as I forced myself toward the door. Every step sent waves of pain through me. I reached the doorway just in time to witness a scene that shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. Kane was rushing into the emergency room. He was carrying a woman close to his chest. His face, usually composed and unreadable, was twisted in desperation and fear. His lips were moving, shouting for a doctor, but I barely heard the words over the roaring in my ears. The woman in his arms. Violet. The woman who had disappeared for 5 years. The woman he had never stopped loving. My breath hitched. My fingers clutched the doorframe as I started to feel dizzy. No, it couldn't be. She was back. The pack had whispered about her for years. Everyone speculated if she was dead or had abandoned Kane, but in all that time, he had never let her go. Not in his heart. And now, seeing him hold her like she was his entire world, it hurt. More than the accident, more than the cruel words of the pack, more than all the nights I spent alone in our cold bed. I bit down on my lips so hard I tasted blood. I wanted to move, to turn away, but my feet were frozen to the floor. Just then my phone rang. I flinched and glanced at the screen. Helen, my mother-in-law. I hesitated before answering. The moment I did, her sharp voice came through the phone. Kathy, where are you? She snapped. My throat tightened. I'm at the hospital. There was an accident. Accident? She scoffed. You can't even do something as simple as grocery shopping without causing trouble? I swallowed the lump in my throat. I don't want to hear excuses, she interrupted coldly. You were supposed to be back by now. There are things to be done and you're lazing around. Get back to the palace now. I opened my mouth wanting to tell her about the accident, about my pregnancy, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I already knew she wouldn't care. She never had. My grip tightened around my phone. Yes, Luna Helen. The line went dead. I looked up just in time to see Kane disappearing into Violet's hospital room. His attention was solely on her. Not once had he looked around. Not once had he noticed me standing there, broken and alone. A deep ache spread through my chest as I turned away, going back into my room. The moment I shut the door behind me, the reality sunk in. Violet was back, and I was still invisible. Kathy's Pove. I chose to take a taxi home since my car was broken. Every inch of my body still ached. James stood by my side as I climbed into the vehicle. Take care of yourself, Kath, he said. His voice was filled with brotherly affection. You just got out of the hospital, and you're already pushing yourself. I'll check on you later. I rolled my eyes playfully. You're worse than an overprotective mother. James chuckled and ruffled my hair, an old habit he had never abandoned. But his expression quickly turned serious again as he looked into my eyes. Are you sure you're okay? He asked. You can't fool me, Kath. I know you. I hesitated. For a moment I wanted to tell him everything, about the fear of Violet's return, the way Kane had looked at her in that hospital corridor like she was his entire world, but instead I forced a smile. I'm fine, James, I lied. Just tired. He studied me for a long moment before sighing. All right, but if you need me, call me, okay? I nodded, waving at him as the taxi pulled away from the curb. As I settled into the seat, the exhaustion finally began to weigh down on me. My mind, however, refused to rest. Violet was back. The thought haunted me. 5 years ago, a rogue attack had taken her from Kane. She had vanished without a trace, then she was presumed dead. And on that very same night, my newly transformed wolf had suffered fatal injuries, causing her to fall into a deep, unnatural sleep. I had been left broken, barely holding on to life, and the pack had turned its back on me. They believed Violet's disappearance was somehow my fault, that I had let it happen, that I had stolen Kane from her. In their eyes, I was nothing more than a murderer. But now that she was back, would my name finally be cleared? Would Kane finally look at me without resentment in his eyes? A part of me dared to hope, a foolish, desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the moon goddess's way of setting things right. Maybe my suffering had not been in vain. I clenched my hands together in my lap, taking deep breaths. No matter what happened, I had to be strong. For myself. For my unborn child. The taxi finally pulled up to the Packhouse's packaging factory, where I had been ordered to go by Lady Helen. I stepped out and made my way inside. My heart pounded when I saw her standing at the top of the stairs. Lady Helen. The former Luna had never looked at me with anything but hatred. Now was no different. "You truly are useless, Kathy," she said. "You can't even do something as simple as shopping without getting into a car accident. And now you can't even bear a child properly." Her words were a dagger to my heart, but I refused to flinch. I stood tall. "I wasn't being careless, Luna Helen," I said evenly. "A truck lost control. It wasn't my fault." She scoffed, descending the stairs. "Excuses? That's all you ever have. I should have never let Cain be bound to someone like you. If it weren't for that ridiculous prophecy, you never would have been Luna." I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. "I'm doing my best," I whispered. "Your best isn't enough," she snapped. "You're a disgrace, a weak, pathetic excuse for a Luna. And now that Violet is back, maybe the moon goddess is finally correcting the mistake that was made." My breath hitched. Violet, of course, she had already heard. Of course, she was already thinking of how to push me out completely. "I don't know why the goddess marked you," she continued, shaking her head in disgust. "You should never have been by Cain's side. You should have never been a part of this pack." The words sank into me like a knife being stabbed at my back, but I refused to let her see me break. I had suffered too much already to let her see me crumble now. So I straightened my shoulders. "I may not have chosen this fate," I said quietly, "but I will not run from it. The moon goddess gave me this path, and I will walk it whether you believe in me or not." "You dare talk back at me?" I looked at the ground. "I apologize." "Useless girl," she spat. "Can't even do a simple task without making a mess of things. Now go clean the West Wing bedroom." The West Wing bedroom? A cold shiver ran down my spine. That room had been closed off for years, untouched. But now she wanted it cleaned? Why? Was someone moving into the palace? Who could it possibly be? Violet. My stomach twisted, and nausea surged up my throat. No, it couldn't be. Would Cain bring her here? Would he take everything from me, including my position, my dignity, my child? As I made my way toward the West Wing, my heart pounded with each step. I pushed the doors open, revealing a room covered in dust. The furniture were covered in white sheets. The room was dirty, but it was still beautiful. This was the room of someone important, someone cherished. Tears burned the back of my eyes. I knew then Violet was coming home. I sucked in a sharp breath, forcing my trembling hands to pull off the sheets, to sweep away the dust, to prepare the bed she would lay in while I didn't know what my place would be anymore. Was Cain going to divorce me? And what about my pup? A sharp pain twisted through my chest, suffocating me. If Cain knew I was pregnant, would he take my child away from me? Force me to get rid of it? The thought made me grip the edge of the bed. I had spent years enduring his coldness, his hatred. But this child, it was mine. It was the only piece of me that mattered now. Tears spilled freely down my cheeks as I straightened the pillows. I had to keep going. I had to finish. No matter how much it hurt, I had to do what was expected of me. When I finally stepped out of the West Wing, the house was silent. But then, footsteps. The front door swung open, and there he was. Cain. He was carrying someone in his arms. His expression was filled with something I had never seen before, pure tenderness. And the woman in his arms? Violet. A lump lodged in my throat. His entire focus was on her, as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "Get a room ready. Make sure she has everything she needs," he said to one of the maids. He didn't even look at me. Not once. Kathy's povee. I had no choice but to obey Cain's orders. My hands trembled as I carried a silver tray with a glass of water. The West Wing bedroom had once been sealed off, untouched for years. Now it was prepared for her. Violet. My heart pounded as I entered the room. The woman who had disappeared for 5 years now lay in the bed that I had prepared. She was wrapped in silk sheets like a queen reclaiming her throne. "Here," I murmured, setting the water on the nightstand beside her. Violet gave me a sweet smile. "Thank you, Kathy. That's so kind of you." Kane stood near the window with his arms crossed and an unreadable expression. But I saw it. The way his gaze softened when he looked at her, the tenderness that I had never once received. Before I could dwell on it, his phone rang. With a sigh, he pulled it from his pocket and glanced at the screen. "I need to take this," he said, already turning toward the door. "Violet, rest. Kathy, make sure she's comfortable." The moment he was gone, the act dropped. Violet sat up slightly, smiling evilly. "Oh, Kathy," she purred. "Still so obedient, still so desperate for scraps of his attention. It's almost pathetic." I stiffened. "What?" She tilted her head. "Did you really think you could replace me? That Kane would ever truly see you as his Luna?" She scoffed. "You were just a convenience, a placeholder until I came back. And now? Now I'm going to take back everything that belongs to me." My nails dug into my palms. "Do as you wish," I said. "I have nothing to fight for." Her laughter was light. "Oh, but you do. Your position. Your pride." Tears burned in my eyes. I couldn't stay here another second. I turned and walked away. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. A loud knocking woke me up from my restless sleep. Before I could fully wake, the door burst open and 2 werewolf warriors stormed in. My stomach twisted with fear as they grabbed me roughly by the arms. "What?" "Luna, Kathy," one of them said. "You are to kneel in the main hall. Now." I was confused. What the hell were they talking about? What is going on? I struggled against their hold, but their grips only tightened. "I demand to know what this is about." My words fell on deaf ears. They dragged me through the halls with my feet barely touching the ground. When we reached the grand hall, my breath hitched. The elders of the Werewolf Council were there. Beta Jason, my adoptive father, Violet, Luna Helen, and Kane. Kane's eyes met mine, but there was no warmth, no concern. Instead, his gaze was focused on Violet, who stood beside him, looking pale and fragile, as if the mere act of standing took all her strength. The cold marble floor felt like ice beneath my knees, its chill seeping into my bones as I knelt there. My hands trembled as I looked at Kane, my mate, my alpha, my everything. But he did not move. He did not speak. His silence cut through me sharper than any blade ever could. "Kane," I whispered, "why am I here?" Violet's face was wet with tears. She sobbed softly. She was an actress, a damn good one. She was the villain in this story, and I was her prey. "You're here for your sentencing," an elder said. "Traitor." "How could you, Kathy?" Violet sobbed, voice trembling. You sent those rogues after me. They almost killed me. Do you hate me that much? Do you hate Kane that much?" Her eyes, those deceitful, cunning eyes, met mine, shining with artificial grief. "I thought you loved him." I clenched my fists. "I do love him," I turned to Kane, desperate. "I would never, never harm this pack. I would never betray you. Kane, please, you know me. You know my heart." But he remained silent. His jaw was set. His dark eyes were cold, unreadable. The mate bond between us seemed like it was breaking with every second he refused to speak. The elders stood in a semicircle before me. Their leader, Elder Marcus, stepped forward. He looked down at me with disgust. "Kathy," he said, "the evidence against you is overwhelming. Witnesses saw you meeting with the rogues days before the attack. Coincidence? I think not." "That's a lie," I cried. "I met no one. Who are these so-called witnesses? I demand to see them." Elder Marcus chuckled darkly. "The guilty always demand proof when they know the truth is against them. Do you think we would come here unprepared? We have everything we need to ensure justice is served." "Justice?" My voice cracked. "I didn't do it." I turned wildly, searching every face in the room, searching for someone, anyone to believe me. But all I found was condemnation. "Silence, traitor," another elder hissed. "Your lies will not save you." Tears burned my eyes. I shook my head violently. No, please." "Pathetic," Lady Helen said. "I knew you were never fit to be by my son's side. I knew the moon goddess made a mistake when she chose you for him." Her gaze was ice. "You have brought shame upon this pack, and now the goddess corrects her mistake." I sobbed. "I swear to you, I didn't do this. Please, Kane, say something. You're my mate." Still, nothing. Violet sniffled delicately and wiped at her perfect face. "Oh, Kathy," she whispered, "why did it have to come to this? You could have been happy, but your jealousy ruined everything. You always hated me. I tried to be kind to you. I tried to be your friend. And now, this." Rage flared inside me. I turned on her with all the fury of a wounded wolf. "You did this. You set me up." "You're lying." she gasped, stepping back into Kane's arms. She's dangerous, she whimpered. Kane, she scares me. His arms instinctively tightened around her. His body, the body that should have been protecting me, shielding me, was wrapped around her instead. And in that moment I knew. He had already made his choice. My stomach twisted. The betrayal was tightening around my throat, suffocating me. You believe her? I whispered. Over me, after everything? Finally he spoke. His voice was quiet but firm. The evidence is clear. I gasped as if he had physically struck me. No. His gaze was emotionless. The law is the law, Kathy. Tears slipped down my cheeks. No, Kane, don't do this. I'm your mate. You know me. I would never. The elders murmured among themselves. Her punishment is death. That is our law. Betrayal cannot go unanswered. My breath came in gasps. Please, please, Kane. Don't let them do this. Violet turned in his arms, pressing a soft kiss to his jaw. She deserves it, my love. She tried to take you from me. She tried to take everything from us. A broken sob tore through my chest as I collapsed completely. The world around me blurred. I had fought for so long. I had endured Kane's coldness, Helen's cruelty, the pack's bullying. But this betrayal was too much. The mate bond burned inside me, screaming, wailing for him to remember, to see me. Please, Kane, I whispered. You know me. You know I would never do this. But he remained silent. The evidence is irrefutable, Elder Marcus sneered. The rogues who attacked confessed before their execution. They claimed they were led by a woman from our own pack, a woman who had every reason to seek vengeance. He turned to me. You. A murmur of agreement spread through the council. No, no, no. I shook my head frantically. That's a lie. I would never betray my pack. I love this pack. I've fought for this pack. Kane, please. I reached for him again. My fingers trembled as they brushed against his tunic, but he did not look at me. Lies, Elder Tobias spat. Poisonous, deceitful lies, just as we should have expected from a snake like you. She was weak 5 years ago. Elder Henrietta said, we thought her incapable of harm, but it was all an act, a ruse to hide her true intentions. She deserves to die, someone shouted from the crowd. A chorus of agreement followed. Terror wrapped itself around my chest, squeezing the breath from my lungs. My heart slammed against my ribs. I was suffocating. Stop it, please. I sobbed, shaking my head as I turned desperately to Beta Jason, my father. Dad, please. You know I wouldn't do this. You know. Beta Jason stepped forward. His expression was filled with grief. He fell to one knee before Kane. Alpha, his voice trembled, I beg of you, do not act in haste. Kathy has been nothing but loyal to this pack. This accusation, it does not make sense. The elders scoffed. Why would you defend such a vile traitor? Elder Marcus barked. You raised her, Beta. Are you so blind to the monster you created? Jason's jaw clenched. I do not believe she is guilty. Please, my daughter would never do that. You also did not believe she would be responsible for Violet's death 5 years ago, Luna Helen interjected. Yet here we are. I didn't kill Violet, I said. She's right there, alive. Helen moved forward and her hand met my cheek before I could react. A crack echoed in the air. I fell onto my side, stunned. My skin burned from the pain. My vision blurred with tears as I held my stinging cheek. You wretched girl, Helen spat. How dare you plot to kidnap Violet? How dare you try to destroy everything Kane and I have built? My blood ran cold. Kane and I? I turned my head, desperate for Kane's reaction, but he didn't move. He didn't speak. He didn't reach for me. He only held Violet tighter. A strangled sob escaped my lips, and I felt my soul shatter. Kane? I whispered brokenly. Please, enough, Elder Tobias roared. Guards, take her to the dungeon. She will face her execution soon. No, please. I pleaded as rough hands seized my arms. Kane, don't let them do this to me. I swear I'm innocent. Beta Jason lunged forward, but 2 guards restrained him. Kathy, no. I looked back one last time. Kane stood still, watching but not moving, watching but not saving me. Violet lifted her face, and for a brief second I saw it, the glint of victory in her eyes. I screamed, struggling against the guards, but they only tightened their hold, dragging me through the halls like a criminal. Laughter and whispers surrounded me. The guards sneered. I always knew she was trouble. Can't believe Beta Jason raised that. She should have died 5 years ago. My throat closed, my heart pounded in terror. My hands went to my stomach, protecting the tiny life inside me. They dragged me all the way to the dungeon. The old air of the dungeon hit me like a slap. The damp, moldy scent made bile rise in my throat. As the guards threw me inside a dark cell, I hit the stone floor hard, my hands scraped against the rough ground. Pain radiated through my body, but all I could do was clutch my belly. My tears fell freely now. I curled into myself, my entire body shaking. My mate had abandoned me, my pack had condemned me, and no one was coming to save me. I was alone, and I was carrying the child of a man who had just let me be thrown away like nothing. I closed my eyes and let the sobs take me. My heart broke into pieces, one breath at a time, Kathy's pove. I curled up in the farthest corner of the cell, cradling my swollen belly as if my hands alone could shield my unborn child from the cruelty of this world. Every breath came out in shaky puffs, and my throat burned with thirst. The thin, tattered blanket I had been given did nothing to protect me from the chill that seeped into my bones. I had lost count of the hours, maybe even days, since I had been locked away. I was scared out of my mind, but I clung to one hope. Someone had to believe me. I perceived a familiar scent through the iron bars before I even saw them. My heart clenched painfully as Beta, Jason, and Gina stepped into view. Their eyes, filled with worry and heartbreak, met mine. My lips trembled, and for a brief moment I wanted to put on a brave face, but the second I saw my foster mother's tearful expression, my walls crumbled. "Kathy," Gina whispered. She reached through the bars, cupping my face with warm, trembling hands. "My sweet girl, look at you. What have they done to you?" I bit my lower lip hard, shaking my head as hot tears slipped down my cheeks. "I didn't do it," I choked out. My voice was hoarse. "Didn't hurt Violet, you believe me, don't you?" Jason knelt beside Gina. His jaw was set in a hard line, but I could see the sadness in his eyes. "Tell me the truth, Kathy. Did you have anything to do with what happened to her?" The very thought made my stomach twist. Violet's accusations had blindsided me, and now they had left me here to rot. I swallowed back a sob and shook my head with more force. "No, I swear it. I would never. I don't even know why she would say that." Jason exhaled slowly, nodding as if he'd already known my answer. He reached through the bars to hold my hand. "Then we will find a way to get you out of here. We won't let them keep you locked away like this." Gina wiped my tears. Her thumb brushed my cheek with all the gentleness of a mother comforting her child. "You're not alone, Kathy. We love you, and we will fight for you." My heart swelled and ached at the same time. They were the only family I had ever truly known, the only ones who cared for me in this world. I nodded through my tears, but the moment of solace was brief. Too soon, they were forced to leave, and I was once again left in silence. The thirst and cold tortured me. But what worried me even more was the fragile life within me. I pressed my hands against my belly, whispering soft reassurances to the child who had done nothing to deserve this cruel fate. I don't know how much time passed before the heavy sound of boots against the stone floor drew my attention. The scent of authority, of power, filled the air. I looked up as Alpha Kane appeared at the door of my holding cell. "Kane!" I scrambled forward, gripping the cold iron bars. "You have to believe me. I didn't do this. Please, you're my mate. You know I wouldn't." His golden eyes met mine, but there was no warmth, no comfort in them. Just coldness. My breath hitched. "Kane?" For a moment he just stared at me, as if he were looking at a stranger. Finally he spoke. "You've been freed. Elder Alyosha pleaded on your behalf." I felt so relieved. "Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you investigate? Did you find out the truth? You have to know I'm innocent." His expression remained impassive. "The result is that you will not be punished for now. That is all you need to know. For now?" My stomach twisted at the words. "That's it? You're not even going to tell me if you believe me?" His gaze flickered slightly, but he didn't respond. Instead, he stepped aside, gesturing for me to follow him. I wrapped my arms protectively around my belly and walked past him. I should have been grateful. I was free. But my mate, the one person who was supposed to stand by me, to protect me, had turned his back on me. Elder Alyosha must have been the one to reach out to Jason and Gina. She was old, wise, and respected. If not for her intervention, I might have been left here until I miscarried. I owed her my life and my child's. I would have to find a way to thank her. As I stepped out of the cold cell, I took one last glance at Kane. His expression remained unreadable. And with that, I knew. Whatever bond we had, whatever love I had dreamed of, it had shattered. Back in my room, the moment I shut the door behind me, I shivered, leaning against the wall for support. My wound pulsed with pain. I pressed a trembling hand against my stomach, willing myself to stay upright. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The wound had become inflamed. With every step, the pain sharpened. I needed James. He would know what to do. He always did. By the time I reached his door, my vision blurred at the edges. I knocked weakly, barely able to keep myself standing. When the door swung open, James's dark eyes widened in alarm. "Kathy?" he breathed as he reached out for me. I tried to smile, but it must have come out as a grimace because his jaw clenched and his fingers curled into fists. "You're burning up," he muttered, guiding me inside. I swayed, and he caught me before I could hit the floor. "What the hell happened?" he demanded. He sat me down on his couch, kneeling in front of me. I started, but a sharp inhale turned into a hiss of pain as he pressed his fingers lightly to my bandages. "Did Kane do this? Did he leave you to suffer like this?" "No, James, it's not Kane's fault," I whispered urgently. I didn't take care of it in time. That's why it got infected." James's jaw ticked and his dark eyes searched mine, looking for a lie. "I don't believe you." I shook my head. "Please, don't do anything. Don't get involved. Not because of me." He exhaled sharply. His expression was torn between frustration and concern. "You're trembling," he murmured, his voice gentler now. "Damn it, Kathy." He moved quickly, grabbing supplies and kneeling in front of me once more. His fingers worked to unravel the soiled bandages. When the bandage finally came off, James sucked in a sharp breath. "Kathy?" I winced. I didn't have to look at it to know how bad it was. He reached for antiseptic. "This is going to sting," he warned. I nodded, bracing myself. The moment the antiseptic touched the wound, pain shot through me like lightning. I gasped. My fingers curled into the fabric of my dress. James's free hand found mine, squeezing it tightly. "Breathe," he murmured. I did, barely. He worked in silence for a while. Gently, he wrapped fresh bandages around my torso. When he finished, he sat back. He studied me for a long moment before shaking his head. "You're weaker than you should be." I swallowed hard. "It's just the infection." His eyes darkened. "It's more than that, Kathy." I frowned. "What do you mean?" James hesitated, running a hand through his hair. His expression was grim, and when he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than before. "You've lost your wolf." I stiffened. "I know." He looked at my stomach. "And without Kane's mark?" I held my breath. "What?" James inhaled deeply before delivering the truth that shattered me. "Without his mark, Kathy, the pup inside you won't survive." My fingers trembled as they brushed over my abdomen. My vision blurred with unshed tears. No. I couldn't lose my child. Not like this. I couldn't help but sob. James reached for me. "Kathy," he murmured. I squeezed my eyes shut, inhaling shakily. "I have to tell Kane." James tensed, but he nodded. "Yes, you do." I opened my eyes. No matter what, I wouldn't let my baby disappear. I would fight for this child, even if it meant facing the one man I had been avoiding for so long. I had no choice now. I had to tell Kane the truth. As I stepped into the palace, my heart clenched painfully. The grand hall felt colder than I remembered. My feet hesitated at the doorway to the main hall, but my eyes were already drawn to the floor-to-ceiling window. There, in the golden glow of the setting sun, stood Kane and Violet. They were close, too close. My breath hitched as I watched her fingers reach up to adjust his collar. He didn't pull away. Instead, he smiled down at her. His gaze was soft, affectionate, an expression I had never seen him wear when looking at me. A sharp pain twisted through my chest, stealing my breath. In that moment, I wished I had never returned. Wished I had never stepped into his life, never fallen for the mate bond that now felt like a curse. But James's words echoed in my mind. "Without Kane's mark, my child will die." Gently, I placed a trembling hand on my stomach. My child. My last shred of hope. For them, I had to swallow my pride and face the man who had never once truly chosen me. Summoning every ounce of strength I had left, I stepped forward. My legs felt like lead. My heart hammered as I approached Kane and Violet. As if sensing my presence, Kane turned. His expression hardened as soon as he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Violet turned. She didn't step away from Kane. If anything, she angled her body closer to his, as if to remind me of my place, an outsider in my own mate's life. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing my voice to remain steady. I need to speak with you. Alone. Kane's eyes flickered with something unreadable before he sighed, rubbing his temple as if I were nothing but an inconvenience. Violet, give us a moment. Violet hesitated. Of course, Kane. As she passed me, she leaned in just enough to whisper, don't embarrass yourself. I ignored her. My focus was solely on Kane. Well, he crossed his arms as if I were wasting his time. I inhaled sharply. This was for my child, not for me. I'm pregnant. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, as Kane stood before me. He looked surprised, but not in a bad way. The disbelief in his expression made my stomach twist. My fingers trembled as I clenched them together, bracing myself for his reaction. Is it real? His voice was low, almost as if he was afraid to hear my answer. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yes, Kane, I'm really pregnant. Silence. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. His entire body went rigid. His usually cold expression clouded with confusion and something I couldn't quite name. I expected him to say something, anything, but he just stood there, absorbing the truth. Then, before he could respond, a rush of movement caught my attention. Great! I'm so happy! Luna Helen's voice rang out, high-pitched and filled with an enthusiasm that sent a chill down my spine. I hadn't even realized she was there, lurking just beyond the shadows, watching, waiting. My breath hitched as she approached us. Her smile, so foreign on her usually stern face, unsettled me. Luna Helen had never smiled at me throughout our marriage. If anything, she had relished making my life unbearable. She had bullied me, told me words meant to break me, and now she was acting as though she was genuinely happy. I forced myself to remain still, even though I was surprised by her expression. A tiny flicker of hope bloomed in my chest. Could this child, this tiny life growing inside me, really change things? Could it be the turning point in my marriage, in the way I was treated? I silently thanked the moon goddess, praying that this was the start of something new. Just as I dared to believe it, another voice cut through the air. Congratulations, Kathy. Violet. I stiffened immediately, and my hands instinctively moved to my stomach. She walked toward us slowly. She looked happy for us, but I knew better. I could see the glint in her eyes. I won't even blame you for your past mistakes, she said. My breath caught in my throat. My nails dug into my palms as anger burned inside me. How dare she? How dare she act so righteous, as if she was somehow above me? I wanted to say something, needed to. My mouth opened, but before I could utter a single word. Enough. Kane's command was sharp, leaving no room for argument. His tone was filled with an authority that sent a shiver down my spine. I bit my tongue, swallowing my retort as I turned my gaze toward him. His expression had hardened. You are here because of Alyosha, he said, and Violet is still alive. Pain. It was unbearable, suffocating. It wrapped around me. The feeling crushed what little hope I had managed to have. My vision blurred. He had just confirmed it. I was nothing to him beyond duty, beyond obligation. No matter what I did, no matter how much I endured, Violet would always be in the picture. She would always be his top priority. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything to escape this agony, but then, you need his mark. I remembered James's words, and because of that I had to endure everything, for my child. That evening, I entered the kitchen with the intention to make dinner as usual, but Luna Helen stopped me and asked me not to cook. The moment I realized I wasn't being asked to cook, I was shocked. It was the first time since marrying into this family that I wasn't required to do any housework before dinner. I lingered in my room for a while, unsure if this was a cruel joke, but no one came calling for me. No orders, no scolding, just silence. When it was finally time for dinner, I made my way to the dining hall. The moment I entered, I noticed the change in the atmosphere. There was no hostility, no sideways glances from the Omegas, no sneers from the maids. As I took my seat, Luna Helen, who had never so much as smiled at me before, cleared her throat, drawing everyone's attention. She beamed at me. I have an announcement to make, she declared. Kathy is pregnant. A stunned silence followed before murmurs spread across the room. Some looked genuinely surprised, others were apprehensive, I guess. Then, to my utter shock, Helen turned toward the maids and Omegas. From this moment on, no one is to bully Kathy. Is that understood? The maids immediately bowed their heads. Yes, Luna. One by one, they left the room, but not before quietly offering their congratulations. I sat there, unable to process what had just happened. After all these years of cruelty, of being treated as less than dirt, they were suddenly showing me kindness? All because of the child growing inside me? The moon goddess must have truly been watching over me. Just when I thought I couldn't be more surprised, Helen turned to Violet. My body stiffened. "Violet," she said, "for the sake of peace, I suggest you avoid appearing in front of Kathy as much as possible." I barely stopped myself from gasping. Helen had always favored Violet, always treated her as more of a daughter than me, and now she was taking my side. This child really was changing everything. After dinner, Helen turned to Kane with a smile and said, "Escort her to her room." Kane hesitated for a moment before rising from his seat. Without a word, he walked beside me as we made our way down the corridors. The air between us was thick. Just as we reached my door, he suddenly stopped. I turned to face him. At this point, my pulse was racing. He still refused to meet my eyes, but his gaze dropped to my stomach. Then, to my absolute shock, he knelt before me. His strong hands gently pressed against my belly. His touch was warm. My breath hitched as he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss against my stomach. A shiver ran down my spine. It wasn't just a casual gesture. There was something tender about it, something protective. I could feel it. The bond between us, the mate bond. I stared at him, admiring how effortlessly handsome he was, the way the moonlight highlighted his handsome features. When he finally lifted his gaze, his stormy eyes met mine. My heart clenched. "Kane," I whispered. I didn't know what overcame me, but I couldn't stop myself. Before I knew it, I leaned in and pressed my lips to his. For a moment, he froze. I thought he would push me away, reject me, like he always did. But then he kissed me back. Then, suddenly, he stiffened. A shadow crossed his face. His grip on me loosened. He was receiving a mental link. I waited, but the second his expression darkened, I felt scared. He went completely still before his hands shoved me roughly. I fell to the floor. "Kane," I started, confused and hurt. His eyes burned with fury as he glared at me. "You. Murderer." The word shattered me. I managed to stand. "What? Alyosha is dead." His words were like a knife to my heart. I gasped. The world tilted. Alyosha was dead? Kathy's Pove. The world blurred around me as the words echoed in my ear. Elder Alyosha was dead? How? My breath hitched. My body trembled as I knelt on the cold stone floor, staring up at Kane's cold eyes. I could see the disgust on his face. He didn't even need to say it. I could see it written all over his expression. He thought I had done it. Again. Murderer. The word left his lips coldly. "No." My voice cracked as I shook my head violently. "I didn't do it, I swear, Kane. I would never hurt her." The elder had been the only one who had believed in me when everyone else turned their backs. She had stood by me, defended me. The thought of harming her was beyond unthinkable. It was unbearable. I could never think of doing such a thing. And yet, here I was, kneeling before the man I had once loved, pleading for my innocence, only to be met with coldness. Tears streamed freely down my face. "Please, let me see her. Let me prove I had nothing to do with this." Kane scoffed. "Prove what? That you're capable of manipulating your way out of another crime?" His voice was laced with venom, with hatred so thick it strangled me. "What are you up to this time, Kathy?" "I'm not." My words choked off as I sobbed. I reached for him. My trembling fingers barely grazed his hand before he jerked away as if my touch burned him. The rejection stung. Kane let out a disgusted breath, and without warning, he gripped my hand. "Enough," he growled. "Get up." I gasped as he yanked me to my feet. His strength made it impossible to resist. I felt pain in my wrist from the force of his hold, but it was nothing compared to the pain inside my chest. Why? Why wouldn't he believe me? Why was he always so quick to condemn me without even listening? I stumbled behind him as he dragged me down the corridor. My feet could barely keep up with his long steps. We kept on walking. I wondered where he was taking me. And then suddenly I was falling. Kane shoved me forward, and I barely managed to catch myself as I hit the marble floor of the grand hall. Pain flared up my knees, but I barely noticed it as I lifted my head. My eyes widened at the sight before me. The hall was already filled. Beta Jason stood near the fireplace. Beside him was Luna Helen, who was looking at me with an unreadable expression. And Violet stood a little to the side. The air was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. Kane spoke, "Tell her." Jason let out a heavy sigh, rubbing his temple before meeting my gaze. His features were filled with exhaustion, but there was something else there, too. Something that made my stomach twist. Pity. "Kathy," he began. "Elder Alyosha was killed tonight, a fatal blow to the head." My breath left me in a sharp gasp. "No," I whispered, shaking my head in disbelief. My stomach twisted violently. This couldn't be happening. Jason's gaze darkened. "Violet said she saw you." The words sent a cold shiver down my spine. Of course, Violet was behind this. I stared at him, hoping, praying that I had misheard, that this was all some horrific misunderstanding. But no. Elder Alyosha was dead. Murdered. And Violet had accused me of it. All of a sudden, a sound of laughter filled the room. I turned, and there she was, Violet. She leaned lazily against one of the Grand Hall's columns with a smirk playing at the corner of her lips, but in the blink of an eye, she wiped it away and replaced it with a carefully composed expression of pity. Fake sympathy dripped from her voice as she sighed, shaking her head. "What a shame, Kathy," she said. "I never wanted to believe it was you, but the evidence is damning, isn't it?" "No," I whispered, shaking my head. My whole body trembled. "No, I never went to her room. I swear on my life. Violet is lying." Violet chuckled softly. "Lying?" She stepped forward. "Oh, Kathy, are you really going to deny it? I saw you. I saw you with my own eyes heading toward Elder Alyosha's quarters. Why don't you just admit it already?" I swallowed, trying to steady myself, but the panic was already creeping into my bones. My chest tightened. My heart pounded against my ribcage like a wild animal trying to escape. "How could I possibly harm Elder Alyosha?" I choked out. My voice broke as I spoke. She was the only one who ever believed in me. She was kind to me when no one else was. Why would I ever do something like this? Kane stood nearby, silent. His arms were crossed. His expression was unreadable, but the cold glint in his eyes made my stomach twist. He didn't believe me. Again, my throat burned with unshed tears. "You're lying," Violet said, tilting her head. "If you didn't go to her room, then where were you? Surely you have an alibi?" I opened my mouth, then froze. Where had I been? I racked my brain, desperately trying to recall my movements throughout the day. But the more I struggled to grasp at my memories, the more they slipped through my fingers like grains of sand. My breathing grew uneven. I was... My voice faltered. Violet pounced on my hesitation. Her smirk grew wider. "Oh, you can't remember? How convenient." She turned to the gathered witnesses, feigning disappointment. "If she were innocent, she'd have an alibi, wouldn't she?" "She's stalling," someone muttered. "She's guilty," another voice whispered. The murmurs grew, filling the room with suspicion and doubt. I turned frantically to Kane, hoping, begging to find something in his gaze. Anything. But all I saw was disappointment, disgust. He believed them. He believed Violet. Tears burned down my cheeks, but I didn't care. "You have to believe me," I pleaded, stepping toward him. "Please, Kane, I swear I didn't do this. You know me." His expression darkened as he took a step back. "I don't know anything anymore." His words cut deeper than any knife ever would. Violet sighed dramatically. "Enough of this. If you won't confess, then maybe this will convince everyone who the real liar is." Slowly, she rolled up her sleeve. Everyone gasped. My entire body turned to ice as my eyes locked onto the mark on her skin. A phoenix. The same mark that should have been on my arm. The very mark that was proof of my lineage. My pupils contracted in horror. How? How was this possible? The phoenix mark, it was on her? Kathy's povee. The uproar in the hall was deafening. Gasps, murmurs, and whispers filled the place as every single pair of eyes fixated on the mark on Violet's arm. The air was thick with disbelief. This can't be," I muttered under my breath. My mind struggled to process what was happening. But before I could even think, Violet turned to me. And then she spat at me. The wet insult landed just short of my foot, but the meaning behind it cut deeper. She raised her hand and pointed a trembling finger at me. 5 years ago, she declared, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. When she discovered I had the same mark, she went crazy with jealousy. She knew this. She intentionally pushed me into that group of thugs and then faked a mark. My body turned to stone. The words registered, but they made no sense. What the hell was this girl talking about? She was trying to spin it on me? Oh, no. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My mind raced, searching desperately for some kind of logical explanation. But it didn't matter. I could see it in their eyes. They were believing her. The nobles, the warriors, the pack leaders, they all stared at me as if I had just admitted to a terrible crime. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "That's not true." Desperate to prove my innocence, my hands shot to my arm, ready to yank my sleeve up and show them my mark, to prove that Violet was lying, that she was the fraud. But as my fingers gripped my sleeve and pulled, my breath caught in my throat. The mark was gone. "What?" I froze. My vision blurred as I blinked rapidly, willing my eyes to see what should have been there. My heart pounded violently against my ribs. The absence of the mark sent panic spreading through my veins. I rubbed my arm frantically, as if wiping at it would somehow make the mark reappear. No, it had always been there. It had always been there, but now there was nothing. Just skin. What the hell was going on? Was this a dream? A sick feeling of dread coiled around my throat as the whispers around me turned into full-blown accusations. "She's a fraud," someone hissed. "She's evil," another voice sneered. Someone else said Beta Jason should have never taken her in. My head snapped up. I turned in the direction of the voice, but the betrayal was everywhere. Their faces blurred together. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, and the walls felt like they were closing in on me. No, this isn't happening. I looked at my father, Beta Jason, the only man who had ever given me a home, who had raised me, protected me, given me his name. Surely he would see through this. Surely he would believe me. But the moment our eyes met, my entire world shattered. All I saw in his eyes was disappointment. There was no anger, no defense of my innocence. Just quiet, heartbroken disappointment. "No," I whispered again, shaking my head. "No, you don't believe this. Dad, you know me. His face hardened. "How could you?" His voice was barely above a whisper, but it was loud enough for everyone else to hear. I felt my knees weaken. My vision blurred with hot tears. My tears fell silently. I crawled toward him like a desperate child. "Please, Dad, please, you have to believe me. I don't know what's happening, but I swear I didn't." He took a step back. The movement felt like a slap. I reached out, but he shook his head. The pain in his eyes was unbearable. "How could you be so malicious?" he asked. "I took you in, Kathy. I raised you as my own, and this is what you do." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat felt raw, like I had swallowed glass. He took another step back. "You're not my daughter." The words landed like a blade straight into my heart. The world tilted beneath my feet. "No," I screamed. I searched his face, pleading with my eyes, my hands reaching for him as though I could pull him back from whatever cruel conclusion he had drawn. But he wouldn't look at me. His face, which had always been a source of comfort, was now twisted with betrayal and pain. "You can't mean that," I whispered. My vision blurred with unshed tears. "You raised me. My voice cracked. You told me I was your daughter." Beta Jason's jaw clenched. "I raised you. I took you in, gave you everything. And this is how you repay me? By proving yourself to be exactly what everyone feared you would become." "This isn't true," I choked out, shaking my head wildly. "I didn't do anything. You expect us to believe you?" someone said behind me. I knew who it was without even turning. Luna Helen. "The pack doesn't need liars and murderers," she said. "A crime like this is punishable by death. We cannot allow traitors to live among us." My stomach dropped. No. Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd, and my head snapped toward Violet, who stood tall with her chin lifted. She turned to Cain. "My mate. The man I loved." "Alpha," Violet said smoothly. "You are the leader of this pack. The decision is yours." The hall fell into complete silence. Cain stood there, unmoving. I could see the tension in his body, the way his hands curled into fists at his sides. But he said nothing. My chest ached painfully. I forced myself to my feet, legs shaking. I turned toward him, hoping, praying that he would look at me, that he would tell everyone this was a mistake, that he would believe me. But when his dark eyes finally met mine, they were unreadable. "Cain." My voice was a broken whisper. "Please." I didn't know what I was begging for. For him to believe me? For him to remember the fact I was carrying his child? Or was I begging for my life, for our child's life? His jaw tightened. What would his decision be? Kathy's Pove. This was it. I had always known that Cain would side with Violet. He always had. She was his beloved, the woman he trusted, the one whose words carried the truth in his eyes. And I was nothing but a disgrace, a murderer in their eyes, a traitor. Why was I even allowing myself to hope? The elders stood in a semicircle before us, watching Cain intently, waiting for him to deliver his verdict. Violet stood tall beside him. I could see the glint of triumph in her eyes. She knew she had won. The moment she requested my execution, I had seen the eager nods, the murmurs of agreement from the elders. Cain would grant her request, and that would be the end of me, the end of my child. I clenched my fists, trying to prepare myself. My baby. I was barely breathing as I waited for him to pass the sentence. My eyelids fluttered shut and my body braced for the inevitable. But then he finally spoke. "No, I will not kill her," he said. The words hit the room hard. Everyone gasped in shock. The elders stiffened and their murmurs turned to hushed outrage. Even Violet looked surprised. Her lips parted and her brows knitted together as though she hadn't heard him correctly. My eyes snapped open. I looked at him in disbelief. My heart stuttered. No? Had I imagined it? Did he refuse? Was he finally willing to believe me? Was there a chance he was opening his eyes, seeing the truth that I had been screaming all along? For a single foolish second, I allowed myself to believe in the possibility that maybe, just maybe, Cain was seeing past Violet's lies. But then the ice-cold reality of his next words shattered the small hope I had. "Even if she did wrong, she still carries my pup," he said. My stomach clenched as I felt the nausea roiling through me. So, that was it. I wasn't being spared because he believed in me. I wasn't being saved because he saw through Violet's deception. I was only alive because of the child growing inside me, his child. So, what if I wasn't pregnant? A bitter laugh bubbled up in my throat, but I swallowed it down, forcing myself to remain still. I should have known. I was nothing to him. I never had been. If it weren't for this baby, my life would be nothing more than a speck of dust under his boot. I would have been wiped away without a second thought. I looked at him, searching his face for something, anything, but all I found was that same cold indifference. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. A hollow ache spread through my chest. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood. At least this bought me some time. Time to protect my baby. Luna Helen, who had been watching in silence, finally spoke again. "Take her back to the dungeon," she ordered. The guards stepped forward at once, grabbing my arms roughly. I didn't resist. My body was limp in their grasp. I looked across the room, seeking the only face that mattered to me now. My father. Beta Jason stood at the far end of the hall with his face carefully blank. But I saw it. The disappointment in his eyes, the look in his eyes, crushed what little was left of my heart. No, not him. I didn't care what the others thought. I didn't care about their whispers, their glares, their accusations. I only wanted him to believe me. "Dad!" My voice cracked as I called out to him. "Please, you know I didn't do this. You have to believe me." But he said nothing. His gaze didn't soften. He didn't step forward. He only turned away. A feeling of pain tore through my chest. It was far worse than any physical wound I had ever endured. I felt the last shred of my soul break. The guards dragged me away. My legs nearly gave out beneath me as I was pulled from the room. The guards didn't just drag me back to the dungeon, they tossed me like a piece of trash. My body hit the damp stone floor. Pain exploded through me, but I barely had the strength to react. My wounds throbbed from the rough treatment, and my already battered body screamed in agony. "Murderer," one of them sneered, spitting on the ground beside me. "Disgusting traitor," another muttered under his breath. Their words stung, but not as much as the betrayal in my father's eyes had. That was a wound no amount of blood or bruises could compare to. I curled up on my side and my arms cradled my belly. I could hear the distant dripping of water, the scurrying of rats. My breath came in shaky gasps as tears slipped silently down my face. This was my life now. Not too long ago I had been happy, safe. Now I was nothing but a condemned woman waiting for the next strike, the next insult, the next betrayal. My entire body tensed. I didn't have to look up to know who it was. The presence alone sent shivers down my spine. Gamma Clayton. He stepped inside with slow steps. In his hand he held a silver whip. My stomach twisted into a knot at the sight of it. "You should be grateful, you know," Clayton said. His voice was casual, as if we were discussing the weather. I didn't respond. I kept my head down. His Majesty, he continued, ordered me to punish you. He should have executed you today, but I suppose your little pup saved you. My fingers curled into fists. The words hurt, but not as much as the truth behind them. Cain hadn't spared me because he believed me. He hadn't protected me because he cared. He had done it because I carried his child. That was all I was to him, a vessel for his heir. Clayton uncoiled the whip, dragging the silver tip against the floor. On your knees, he commanded. I forced myself upright, and my legs trembled as I knelt. My entire body protested the movement, but I bit my lip and bore it. I knew there was no escaping this. The best I could do was endure. The first lash came without warning. The whip struck my back with a force that sent white-hot agony rippling through my body. My lips parted, but I didn't scream. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. The second lash came, then the third. Each strike felt like fire was being burned into my flesh. The silver in the whip burned more than the leather ever could. I gritted my teeth, my hands wrapped protectively around my belly. No matter what happened, I would not let them harm my child. Clayton's voice was mocking. Not even a single scream? How impressive. I could feel the warm feeling of blood sliding down my back, soaking into my already torn dress. My breath came in heavy gasps. My body trembled from the effort of staying upright, but I refused to fall. Then I saw her. Violet stood in the shadows, watching. Her arms were folded and her expression was unreadable, but there was no mistaking the satisfaction in her eyes. The whip cracked again, and my vision blurred. Another lash. I gasped. The darkness in the corners of my vision crept closer. I couldn't hold on any longer. My body gave out, and as I crumpled to the cold stone floor. As soon as I hit the floor, the world faded into darkness. Kathy's Pove. All I could see was darkness. My body ached, burning from the wounds that were on my skin. Every injury I had from the silver whip spread through my nerves like fire. I drifted in and out of consciousness. Because of that, my mind went back to a place where pain did not exist. In that haze, memories surfaced, memories of my childhood. The laughter of children echoed in my ears, but there was no joy in their voices. Only cruelty. Unwanted orphan. You don't belong here. I stood alone, small and defenseless, with my hands clenched into tiny fists. They surrounded me. Their faces were filled in amusement as they taunted me. I wanted to run, but where would I go? Their words hurt me so much. James wasn't there that day. He had always been my shield, my protector, but in that moment I was truly alone. Tears fell from my eyes, blurring my vision as I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then, a voice cut through the cruel laughter. What the hell do you think you're doing? The children froze. The air around us seemed to shift as a powerful aura hit us. I turned and my eyes landed on the figure standing a short distance away. Cain. The sunlight spilled over his broad shoulders, casting a golden glow around him. His expression was hard and his jaw clenched in fury as he looked at the children, who now looked terrified. His presence alone was enough to make them shiver in fear. Get lost, he snarled, unless you want to find out what happens when you mess with her. One by one, they scattered. I stood frozen, my heart pounding. Cain turned his head slightly, glancing at me with something unreadable in his eyes before walking away. I watched his retreating figure. My breath hitched as I tried to process what had just happened. In that moment, he had seemed like a hero. How ironic. The very person who had once saved me was now the one who ordered my punishment. The same lips that had spoken words of protection had given the command for my flesh to be torn open by silver. I laughed bitterly. How foolish was I to think Cain would always be that person? How naive was I to believe he would always stand by me? The pain pulled me back to reality. The agony spread through my body like wildfire. I barely registered the sound of my name being called. The voice was so soft and familiar that for a moment I thought it was him. Cain? I fought against the darkness, forcing my swollen eyes to open. But it wasn't him. James's concerned face came into view. My chest ached, not from my wounds, but from the disappointment I felt. I was so stupid. Why did I think he would come? Why did I still hope? Pathetic. I laughed bitterly at myself. Even now, when my body was shredded and bleeding, I still longed for Cain. How stupid of me. I felt a sharp pain in my body again. It hurt even more this time. I looked down and noticed that James was cleaning my wounds. I winced in pain. "Shh, Kathy," he murmured. I'm trying to be gentle. I trembled. My body flinched at the touch, not because he was hurting me, but because the wounds themselves were unforgiving. The silver had burned deep. James's fingers were careful, but the pain was too much. Kathy, his voice broke slightly as he poured some antiseptic into the cloth, then cleaned my cloth. I'm so sorry. I tried to swallow past the lump in my throat. It hurts? His hands paused for a moment before he set the cloth aside. Without warning, he pulled me into his arms. I stiffened at first, but slowly I relaxed. I'm sorry, he whispered. I hate that you had to go through this. I hate that I couldn't stop it. His words broke something inside me. I clenched his shirt in my fists, and in that moment, I felt my emotions breaking. I sobbed as I buried my face into his shoulder. I don't know what to do anymore, I choked out between sobs. James tightened his arms around me. You don't have to go through this alone, Kathy. I'll always be here. I was so grateful that James was here. Despite everything, he had come. My battered body felt lighter, and so did my heart. He pulled away, then continued cleaning my wounds. I flinched at the sting every now and then. Kathy, his voice was gentle, you need to take care of yourself. How could you let them do this to you? I chuckled, as if I had a choice. James shook his head. You're not an animal, Kathy. You don't deserve this. I'll be fine. You don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to hurt. I swallowed, blinking away the tears in my eyes. I don't have the luxury of breaking down, James. He sighed, dabbing the cloth along one particularly deep gash. I flinched, and he instantly softened his touch. Breathe, he instructed. I followed his lead, inhaling slowly. The pain dulled just enough for me to think clearly again. There was a moment of silence between us before he finally spoke. I've been looking for witnesses. I turned to him in surprise. What? I'm trying to prove you didn't have the time to commit the crime. If I can find someone who saw you somewhere else at the time of Alyosha's murder, then we can get you out of here. My heart clenched in my chest. I had stopped believing in hope the moment they shackled me in this cell. But James still believed in me. I hesitated. You believe me? His brows furrowed as if the question itself was offensive. Of course I do, Kathy. You would never do something like this. The certainty in his voice made my throat tighten. It had been so long since anyone had defended me so fiercely. Kane certainly hadn't. Even my father didn't believe me. James reached out, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. It was such an intimate gesture that my breath hitched. For a moment, he just looked at me. You're a sweet soul, Kathy, he murmured. Kane doesn't deserve someone like you. There was something in his eyes, something I had never seen there before, something that I couldn't understand. My lips parted, but before I could say anything, he shook his head and smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. I'll get to the bottom of this, he promised. James, I swallowed, gathering my strength. Thank you. His expression softened. Don't thank me yet. Just hold on a little longer. I nodded, but then fear curled in my stomach. You need to leave. If anyone finds you here, it'll be over. James hesitated. Eventually, he sighed. I'll be back as soon as I can. I watched as he turned and disappeared through the dark corridor. The moment he was gone, the warmth of his presence vanished, and once again, I felt lonely. But I couldn't sit and wait anymore. I couldn't hope that things would magically resolve themselves. If James was fighting for me, then I needed to fight, too. Elder Alyosha's death, it had to be connected to Violet, the phoenix mark appearing on her, mine vanishing, the sudden, suspicious timing of everything. No, this wasn't coincidence. I needed evidence. I needed to prove my suspicions before it was too late. Kane's Pove. When Violet suddenly appeared in the pack after 5 long years, my heartbeat almost stopped. I could scarcely believe my eyes. She was really back. For 5 agonizing years, I had prayed every night to the moon goddess for her safe return, clinging to the hope that she would come back to me. And now, as she stood before me, alive and well, it felt like the moon goddess had finally answered my prayers. Memories crashed into me all at once, the way she had risked everything to save me, throwing herself into danger without hesitation. If it hadn't been for her selfless courage, I would have died in that accident. That day, I had sworn an oath to the moon goddess. I would always love Violet. I would make her my Luna. But fate is cruel. For the future of the pack, I had to choose Kathy. Kathy, who bore the phoenix mark, the sacred symbol of the pack's chosen Luna. It had been the hardest decision of my life. I had convinced myself that I was making the right choice, that sacrificing my happiness for my people was my duty. I had forced myself to let Violet go, burying my love for her beneath layers of responsibility and obligation. Yet now Violet stood before me once more. And not only that, she bore the phoenix mark on her arm. My mind became confused at the sight. My stomach twisted into knots when I saw it. If Kathy's mark was a lie, then everything I had given up, everything I had endured, had been for nothing. It meant that I could finally be with Violet, openly and without shame. So why didn't I feel the overwhelming happiness I had expected? Instead, I felt doubtful a bit. Violet had returned with a vengeance, demanding Kathy's execution. The fire in her eyes, the coldness in her voice, it was unlike the Violet I had once known. The woman who had once been my salvation now felt like a stranger. Her actions were too calculated, but I brushed it off. My wolf stirred uneasily within me. He had never truly accepted Violet the way I thought he would, and now, as she pressed for Kathy's death, he was angry. "She's not the same," my wolf growled. I clenched my fists. "What are you saying? This is Violet. She's my mate. She's always been my mate." "Was she?" he challenged. "Or was she a choice?" Anger flared in my chest. Of course she was my mate, I swore to the moon goddess. And yet I refuse her, my wolf interrupted. "I never wanted her, Cain. You made the choice, but I never did." The words sent a jolt through me. The feeling was cold and sharp like ice water down my spine. "Then who do you accept?" I asked, dreading the answer. A low growl rumbled in my chest as my wolf's presence surged with intensity. "Kathy." I sucked in a sharp breath. "That's impossible." "Kathy is innocent," my wolf insisted. "She never should have been sentenced." I shook my head, trying to clear the conflicting thoughts battling for dominance in my mind. Violet had vanished for 5 years. 5 long years where Kathy had stood by my side, enduring the scrutiny, the whispered accusations, and the expectations. 5 years where she had never once betrayed me, never once sought to harm the pack. I had ignored my wolf's unease for too long, convincing myself that my duty to Violet overpowered any doubts. But now I wasn't so sure. A sudden growl echoed through my mind. My wolf's presence moved violently. "She's in danger." Panic gripped my chest. "Who?" I demanded. "Kathy," he snarled. "We need to get to the dungeon. Now." "What kind of danger could she probably be in?" My wolf growled furiously in my mind. "Go to her. She's in danger." "I don't care," I shot back, clenching my fists. "She can take care of herself." "You're lying to yourself, Cain. You feel it too. You marked her. She's ours, no matter how much you fight it." I gritted my teeth. "She's not ours. I don't want her." "Then why are you still thinking about her? Why does the thought of her in pain make you restless?" My wolf's tone was smug now, taunting me with a truth I didn't want to admit. "You can't fight the bond forever." "I blocked the connection for a reason. I don't care about her. She betrayed us. She's a criminal." "And yet, you still feel this way," my wolf countered. "If you truly didn't care, you wouldn't be fighting me so hard right now." I let out a harsh breath, raking my hands through my hair. The bond was supposed to be severed. I had forced myself to feel nothing for Kathy, but the moment I heard she might be in danger, something inside me twisted. The feeling was a dark, uncontrollable anxiety that I wanted to ignore. I wanted to pretend it wasn't real, that it didn't exist. But my wolf wouldn't let me. "Go to her," urged again, "before it's too late." I gritted my teeth. "Enough!" I snapped at him. I said, "I don't care." I slammed my fist against the desk. A knock on the door startled me from my inner battle. I turned as the door creaked open, revealing Violet standing there. Her soft eyes looked at me with concern. She stepped inside, Cain. Her voice was smooth, almost seductive. She walked toward me, placing a hand on my chest, trailing her fingers down in slow strokes. I should have smiled. I should have pulled her closer. But my mind was still clouded with thoughts of Kathy, and it infuriated me. Violet seemed to notice. Her lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "You're thinking about her." I scoffed. "No, I'm not." "You are," she said simply. Her fingers still traced small patterns over my shirt. "I can see it in your eyes." I exhaled sharply, irritated. "She's a criminal, Violet. You know what she did." Violet tilted her head. "And yet, she's still a mother." Her voice was gentle, laced with something almost sad. "No matter what she did, No child should lose their mother, and no matter how much you hate her, I know you don't want that on your conscience. I clenched my jaw. She made her choices. And now she's paying for them, Violet agreed. But she's still human, Kane. She's still someone's mate, someone's mother, and right now she's suffering. I sighed, rubbing the bridge of my nose. Why do you even care? Violet's smile was faint but sincere. Because it's the right thing to do. She leaned up and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Her warmth calmed me down a little. Come with me, she whispered. Bring her medicine, bring her food. I exhaled slowly, fighting the war raging inside me. I didn't want to care. I wanted to leave Kathy to her fate. But Violet's words made it harder to hold on to my cold indifference. Reluctantly, I nodded. Fine. Violet beamed, kissing me softly. Thank you, she murmured against my lips. This is why I love you, Kane. Because deep down, no matter how much you try to hide it, you have a good heart. I was surprised to hear this from her. Even with everything Kathy did to her, Violet was still compassionate towards her. She had a kind heart. It was one of the things I loved about her. I pressed a kiss to her forehead before pulling away. I'll get the food. Meet me outside the dungeon. She nodded with a smile. Quickly, I grabbed the food and medicine before heading toward the dungeon. My steps were slow as I walked. But the moment I stepped inside, I froze. There, standing inside Kathy's cell, was James. He was speaking to her. His posture was too close. His voice was low and intimate. Kathy was looking at him with something that sent a feeling of rage igniting through my veins. Mine. The possessiveness crashed into me like a huge wave, drowning out every rational thought. My wolf howled in fury. The sight before me set my blood on fire. James, talking to my mate, Kane's povee. The sight before me was unbearable. My fingers curled into fists at my sides and my nails dug into my palms as I stared into the dimly lit cell. James and Kathy. She was sitting on the floor and James, that bastard, was crouched before her. His hand brushed against her face as he tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. It was such a simple gesture, but it set my blood on fire. My wolf growled within me. It felt like a raging storm barely contained. He snarled and snapped, demanding I tear him away from her. That was my mate. Jealousy burned through me like acid, poisoning every rational thought I might have had. Why was she letting him touch her like that? Did she feel something for him? I knew they were adoptive siblings, but it didn't make the sight any more easier. I clenched my jaw so tightly I heard my own teeth grind. The mere possibility that she might prefer him over me made my vision blur with red-hot fury. She was mine. Violet's voice rang out from behind me. Kane, why are we just standing here? Aren't you going in? I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too caught up in my own torment, locked onto the scene in front of me. My breathing was heavy. James leaned closer to Kathy, whispering something to her. She looked up at him with a soft expression, grateful even. A low growl rumbled in my chest. My whole body tensed with the need to act, to stake my claim, to remind Kathy who she belonged to. My wolf's furious howls echoed inside my head, urging me to make James pay for daring to touch what was mine. Violet shifted beside me, watching me closely. Then she followed my gaze into the cell. Her lips curved into an amused smirk. Well, well, she hummed. Looks like James is quite the gentleman. Look how gentle he is with her. Her voice was dripping with amusement, teasing, but each word stabbed me like a blade. Very attentive, isn't he? The way he's looking at her, like she's the most important thing in the world. She chuckled. To an outsider, they'd look just like a couple. My breathing turned shallow. I felt unhinged. The tension coiled tighter inside me. My wolf clawed to get out and ripped James apart limb by limb. But I remained rooted to the spot, frozen in my own fury. Violet nudged me lightly. Aren't you going to check on her? You are the alpha, after all. You're her mate, aren't you? Gritting my teeth, I finally spat out. With James taking care of her, that traitorous woman doesn't need my concern. The words tasted bitter like venom on my tongue. My wolf roared at me in protest. The sheer force of his anger slammed into me hard. You're a fool, he snapped. She's hurt, and you're just going to leave her to him? She made her choice, I bit back. Look at her, accepting his touch so easily. You don't know that, my wolf howled. She's ours. You can't just turn your back on her. Pain spread through my skull. I was barely holding it together. Every muscle in my body was screaming for action. for violence. But I did nothing. I stood there, burning, breaking, consumed by my own rage. And then I turned away. "Let's go," I told Violet. I walked through the corridors. Violet walked beside me. I couldn't help but notice the way her eyes held a mix of amusement and desire, as if she already knew what would come next. But not tonight. Tonight my mind was elsewhere, on her. When we reached Violet's room, but all I could think about was Kathy. I couldn't shake the image of her with James. My wolf raged inside me, demanding I do something, anything, to fix what felt like a betrayal. Violet tugged me inside. Her hands moved to my chest as she pulled me close. Her breath was hot against my ear. "You've been so distant tonight, Kane," she purred, her lips brushing against my skin. "Let me help you forget your troubles." I stiffened. I pulled back just enough to look her in the eye. There was a brief look of confusion in her gaze before she tilted her head, trying to read me, but there was nothing to read. Not anymore. "I'm not interested, Violet," I said firmly. Her eyes widened, and for a second I saw real surprise there, perhaps even hurt. She had never been one to shy away from my attention. Never once had I turned her down. "Wait," she whispered, her voice softer now. "You're refusing me?" The challenge was clear in her tone, but there was something more, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. My eyes locked onto hers, but all I saw was the haunting image of Kathy and James together. I could almost hear James' voice, see the way he touched her, so gentle and familiar. A sharp feeling of jealousy twisted in my gut. It made me angry in a way I couldn't explain, but I didn't want Violet to see that. I needed her to leave me be. "I'm sorry, Violet," I murmured. My voice was filled with exhaustion. "I can't. Not tonight." She stepped closer, brushing her fingers along my jaw. She leaned in. At this point, our lips were almost touching. "I can make you forget all of this, Kane, all the pain, all the anger." Her breath was a soft, seductive whisper against my ear. "Just let go, let me help you." Her words were like a drug, sweet, tempting, and dangerous. I knew what she was offering, but it felt like a hollow promise. My body, my wolf. Both craved her, but my mind was fixed on something else. Someone else. "I don't need you to make me forget," I replied, though the words tasted bitter. "I need to focus on other things." Violet's face fell slightly. There was a mix of disappointment and confusion in her eyes. For a moment, she just stood there as though trying to understand my rejection. Her lips parted as if to say something, but I turned, not wanting to give her a chance to argue. "I'll leave you to it." I said quietly, "I'm sorry, Violet, but I need to go." Her voice trailed after me. Her words were barely a whisper. "If you change your mind, you know where to find me." But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Not now. Not when my mind was clouded with thoughts of Kathy. I left her room. My mind was filled with so many emotions. The rejection hung in the air, but all I could think about was the pull inside me, the driving force that led me to walk, almost without thought, toward the dungeon. I tried to stop myself, tried to turn my steps in another direction, to think of anything but Kathy. But my wolf growled low in my chest, urging me onward. "She's there. You need to see her. You need to know if she's okay." I clenched my fists at my sides. Part of me wanted to ignore the nagging voice in my head, wanted to stay away, but the other part, the part that was hers, pulled me to her. "It's the pup," my wolf murmured, calming for the moment. "You need to protect her. You need to protect the pup." The pup, my child. I walked with purpose towards the dungeon. "It's for the pup," I reminded myself again. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just about that. It was about Kathy. It was about the mate bond that I couldn't deny, even if she was too stubborn to accept it. With every step, my mind was torn between rage and desire. I had to see her, to know that she was safe, Kathy's povie. The cell was cold. I could feel the dampness seeping through the stone floor, making every breath feel heavier and every movement slower. I didn't remember when I stopped fighting it, when I stopped trying to hold on to hope. The world felt too far away. It felt like a distant place I couldn't quite reach. My body was broken, but it was the ache in my heart that felt the heaviest. I tried to block out the pain, the hunger, and the painful ache from the silver whip scars that crisscrossed my back and legs, but I couldn't. The silver burned. It hurt me from the inside, like an infection that refused to heal. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the pup, the little life inside me. The baby in my stomach reminded me of everything I was risking. I placed my hand gently over my stomach, cradling the growing bump. It was almost like a silent plea to keep this small, fragile life alive. I could feel the pull between me and my child, but with each passing hour, I grew weaker. I had so many thoughts in my head. What if I couldn't protect them? What if the torture took everything from me? What if at the end of the day, Cain decided to execute me? What if he was just waiting for me to give birth before killing me? If that happens, my child will grow up without a mother, or worse, with Violet as its mother. The fear gripped me tightly, and all I could do was wait. Then, as if the universe itself decided it hadn't tested me enough, the pain came. It started as a dull ache, but it quickly spiraled into something much worse. My stomach clenched. I felt a sharp stab of pain that cut through my entire body. The pain sent waves of nausea and agony crashing through me. I gasped. I gripped my abdomen desperately, as if holding on would make it stop. But it didn't. Each contraction felt like a knife stabbing itself inside me. I curled up on the cold stone as my body trembled. Sweat poured from my brow, soaking into my clothes. My skin started burning up so much I could feel it. My back arched as the pain intensified, and all I could do was breathe in heavy gasps. I tried to hold back the scream that threatened to escape my throat, but it was impossible. It tore through me. My voice cracked as I called out weakly, "Please, please, someone. I need a doctor." But the guards outside didn't care. I heard their footsteps outside. They weren't even trying to hide their disgust. One of them laughed, and I felt my stomach twist. "Look at her. Pathetic thing," one of them sneered. "Crying like a weakling, just like the murderer she is." Another voice joined in. "You don't deserve pity. You get what you give. Don't you know that?" Someone else laughed. "The Alpha's little whore thinks she'll get away with killing our people. She's nothing but a piece of trash. Too bad the pup won't survive." The words hurt me deeply, but it was the mention of the pup that nearly broke me. "She's just a killer," another voice laughed. "Who cares if she dies? Good riddance." I shut my eyes, trying to block it all out, but their voices echoed in my head, even as my vision blurred with tears. No, my baby couldn't die. Moon Goddess, help me, please. A part of me wanted to scream at them, to throw something, anything, but I couldn't move. The pain was too much. It kept growing, tightening around my chest, suffocating me as the world spun. I couldn't even think clearly anymore. Through the pain and exhaustion, I wrapped my arms around my abdomen, pulling myself tighter into a ball. My body trembled from the cold and the agony. I closed my eyes, trying to hold on, trying to keep it together just a little longer. But I felt so helpless, so alone. The dark edges of my vision began to close in. I couldn't die here. Not now. Not with my pup still inside me. I was all they had. I needed to fight. But the strength was gone. Everything was slipping away. My eyelids fluttered. The pain was unbearable. Then a scent hit me. So familiar, so calming. The scent alone was enough to calm me and my wolf instantly. It made my heart skip a beat. I could recognize that scent even if I was unconscious. Cain? Could that be him? Was he here to save me? I could feel it in my bones, in the way my wolf stirred faintly, like a spark of life igniting deep within me. It was as though the universe was pulling me back from the darkness. But I didn't have the strength to open my eyes. I wanted to reach out, to call for him, but my body betrayed me, too weak to even move. I could hear footsteps. My heart skipped. Was it him? Was he really here? His scent filled my lungs. I needed him. But as the world faded once again, I could only lie there with my body shaking and my heart desperate for him to make it in time. "Please, Cain." Kathy's povee. I woke to a blinding white light and the strong scent of antiseptic. I could hear a faint beeping sound in the background. My head ached, my body felt heavy, and I was momentarily disoriented. As my eyes focused, I realized I was lying in a hospital bed. I could feel the dull ache in my limbs from the whipping I received. But it wasn't the pain that caught my attention. It was the figure sitting beside me. Cain. He was there, and the sight of him sent a strange feeling through my chest. I was surprised to see him here. My heart beat faster, and I felt a flood of emotions rushing through me. There was so much I wanted to say, but the question that burned in my mind was simple. Why had he saved me? I turned my head slightly. My voice was hoarse when I spoke, and I had to clear my throat before asking, "Cain, did you bring me here?" He didn't look at me. His eyes were focused on something distant, as if he couldn't bring himself to meet my eyes. His jaw clenched and his shoulders looked tense. After a moment, he nodded, but the words that followed pierced through me like a knife. "It's only because you're carrying my pup," he said. My heart dropped into my stomach. The sharp pain of those words cut deeper than anything I had expected. So, this was it. This was why he saved me. Not because he cared for me, not because he wanted me, but because of the child I carried. The one piece of him that had tied me to him in ways I couldn't escape. My chest tightened as the realization hit me, and I felt the bitter sting of rejection. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead I swallowed my hurt and tried to keep my voice steady. "So you don't care about me," I muttered, more to myself than to him. "No," he replied, "I don't." His answer felt like a slap across my face, and yet it wasn't unexpected. Somewhere deep down, I had known this was what I meant to him. A responsibility, a burden. I was just the vessel for his pup, nothing more. "But because of the pregnancy," he continued, still not looking at me, "you won't be sent back to the dungeons. You'll be under house arrest until the truth is revealed." House arrest. My pulse quickened. I wasn't going to be thrown back into that cold, dark cell. For now, I was free. A flicker of hope sparked in my heart. My mouth went dry, but I managed to ask, Does that mean there's been progress? Do you finally believe me?" Kane's face remained as unreadable as ever, but there was a shift in his posture. Before he could respond, the door opened and Violet walked in. Her expression was filled with concern. The look was so rehearsed that I could see right through it. "I've been so worried about you," she said in a worried tone. "And the baby, of course. Despite everything that's happened, we're still friends, Kathy. I'm willing to forgive you." I turned away, refusing to acknowledge her fake kindness. The words tasted like poison on her lips, and I could see through the mask she wore. She didn't care about me. She didn't care about the baby. All she cared about was keeping her position, keeping control. "And Kane," Violet continued, "I've made some food for you." My body tensed, and I immediately rejected her. No, thank you. I didn't trust her. I couldn't. There was too much at stake, too much risk involved. I didn't want her near me or the baby. Her face fell for a split second, before her expression turned wounded. She played the part so well. "Are you still upset about me revealing the truth?" she asked. Her voice was soft and pitiful, as if I had wronged her somehow. I couldn't help the bitterness that I felt. "You did it to hurt me. You've been playing your part from the start. Don't pretend to be the concerned friend now," I snapped. Kane immediately turned to me. His tone was sharp, commanding as he reprimanded me. "That's enough, Kathy," he said. "You don't get to be rude to her." I couldn't believe it. He was defending her again, as if I didn't matter to him. But of course I didn't. Not compared to Violet. Not compared to her position in his life. Violet, ever the actress, put a hand on his arm. Her eyes were filled with fake concern. "Don't be too hard on her, Kane. After all, you're still married, and she's carrying your pup." The words she spoke were meant to pacify him, but they only made my blood boil. She was playing her cards so carefully, using every possible angle to maintain her hold on him. She was shameless. Then she looked back at me. I could see the evil glint in her eyes. "But I have to wonder," she said. "Why does James seem to care so much about the pup? What's that about?" I froze. The words sank in like daggers. How dare she? I didn't even need to look at Kane to feel the change in the room. My hands curled into fists as my anger flared. "James is my brother," I snapped. "He's my brother, Violet. Not everything is a game for you." At that, Kane's eyes darkened, and he let out a cold laugh. It sent a shiver down my spine. "Once the pup is born, Kathy," he said, "the truth will be clear. Until then, our marriage will end. And once Violet's wolf recovers, she will be my true Luna." My breath caught in my throat. What? Violet's wolf was injured too? She wasn't completely healed? Besides that, his words hurt me. My chest tightened, and I struggled to breathe. He wanted to make Violet his Luna. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I had once loved, the man who had saved me, now standing there, so detached, so cold. And I realized then that the man I had fought for, the one I had hoped would be different, was gone. And in his place there was only a void. I looked away from them both, feeling the emptiness grow within me as the reality of my situation set in. I was totally alone. Kathy's pauvre, Shock rippled through me like a cold wave, starting at my core and crawling across my skin. Kane's words echoed in my head. Violet's wolf was in danger. I thought of it all. The mark that had vanished from my body appearing on hers. That wasn't just strange, it was impossible. It should have been impossible. But the facts stared back at me like a cruel joke. 5 years ago, I lost my wolf. It happened in that horrific accident, the one no one wanted to talk about anymore, the one that nearly cost me everything. My wolf had been gravely injured and, as the healers put it, had slipped into a deep sleep, a coma of the soul. I'd spent half a decade trying to reconnect with her, to feel her presence again, but she was silent, gone. Then Violet returns out of nowhere. She had an injured wolf, missing memories, and now my mark branded onto her like some stolen destiny. Not only did she have my mark had mysteriously vanished from my hand. Coincidence? No. I barely had time to process it when Kane's eyes narrowed. His head tilted a bit as though he were listening to something far away. A moment later he stood. "Excuse me," he said. There was a hint of urgency in his tone. "I have to go." Before I could ask anything, Violet was already up from her chair. "I'll come with you," she said quickly, too quickly. Her tone was eager and falsely sweet. Kane stopped at the door, turning to her with a look that surprised me. "No," he said firmly. "It's pack business. Go back to the Alpha residence and rest." The corners of Violet's smile twitched. That fake mask of gentle concern slipped for the briefest moment, and I saw something beneath, annoyance, maybe even anger. But then she forced her features back to neutral again. "I just want to help," she said, stepping closer to him. "You've been working so hard lately." She leaned in, her lips parted slightly as she moved in to kiss him. But he dodged, smoothly, like it was second nature. He didn't even flinch, just turned away at the last second and opened the door without giving her another glance. I saw her freeze. Kane had never refused her before, but he did now, without hesitation. But why? Trouble in paradise? Even I was surprised. I watched it all from the bed, trying to keep my face blank, but inside? I was amused. Her little performance, her dew-eyed act, her manipulative sweetness, it was crumbling, and she knew it. She could see it slipping through her fingers, and it was killing her. Kane left, and the second the door clicked shut, the air shifted. I turned my head slowly toward her, ready to politely tell her to leave. She didn't need to pretend anymore. Kane was gone. But the woman standing before me was no longer wearing the mask. The gentle smile was gone. Her soft gaze had turned evil, as usual. There was the Violet I knew. Violet walked slowly toward me with her heels clicking softly on the floor, and then she stopped, just short of my bed. Her expression twisted into a sneer, and her voice dropped, colder than ice. "You should stop poking around, Kathy," she said. "Stop digging for answers. It won't end well for you." I blinked, stunned by the sudden shift. "Excuse me?" She leaned in a little, close enough for me to see the wicked glint in her eyes. "If you value your miserable little life," she said in a low tone, "if you care about that thing growing inside you, you'll keep your mouth shut." My chest tightened. My hand moved to my belly, my pup. "You're threatening my child?" I whispered in disbelief. "I'm warning you," she said with a cruel smile. "I don't have to lift a finger. Accidents happen all the time. Miscarriages, falls, poison in tea." "You're sick," I breathed. "And you're stupid if you think this is a game you can win," she said, stepping back with her arms folding over her chest. The rage in me spread, but I held it down for my pup. "I knew it," I said, voice shaking. "It was you. You killed Elder Alyosha." Her smile didn't falter. "I think you're confused. Wasn't it you they found going to her house that night? The one everyone whispered about?" My fists clenched. "You framed me." She tilted her head. "You framed yourself, darling. You were there. You went to her house. You were the last person to see her alive. All I did was help people see the truth. You manipulated everything. Don't be so dramatic." Her tone was light, teasing. "You're not the first to fall for Kane. You won't be the last. But you," she pointed a well-manicured nail at me, "you're the only one foolish enough to stand in my way. I'm not scared of you. You should be," she said, turning toward the door. "Why?" I called after her. "Why frame me? Why do all this?" She paused at the door, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd answer. But all she did was glance over her shoulder with a smirk. "Because I could," she said. And with that, she left. I stood there, trembling with silent anger. My hand rested on my belly, feeling the gentle swell of new life. She was evil. She was a liar. But more than that, she wasn't alone. She couldn't be. There had to be someone helping her. Something bigger was going on here. Someone else was backing her. Someone powerful. Violet didn't have the strength or reach to pull off a murder, a cover-up, and manipulate Kane and the whole council like that all on her own. No matter who else was involved, I wouldn't let them harm my child. I wouldn't let them destroy me again. Third person's POV. Beta Jason walked up the steps of his home. His shoulders were slumped with exhaustion. Every movement of his was heavy, as though he had the weight of the entire pack on his back. He barely had time to take off his boots before a familiar pair of gentle hands reached out to him. "Sit," Gina said softly. He didn't argue. He collapsed into the chair near the window. Gina moved around the room. She poured him a glass of water and brought it over. Jason took the glass but didn't speak. "I've been thinking," Gina began quietly, sitting across from him, "about Kathy." His hand paused halfway to his lips. The water trembled slightly in the glass. "I still believe she's innocent," she continued. "Jason, she's our daughter." Jason's jaw tensed. "She was found outside the Elder's chamber, Gina, covered in blood. Violet saw her, and so did one of the Omega servants. What more do you want?" "I want you to remember who she is," Gina said, her voice firmer now. "Our daughter. The same girl who once cried for hours because she accidentally stepped on a bird's wing. The same girl who brought soup to Elder Alyosha every time he was ill." Jason looked away, closing his eyes tightly. "She adored her, Jason," Gina whispered. "You saw it. You knew it. Alyosha was like a grandmother to her. Kathy must have been devastated when she heard of her death." "That's what makes it so hard," Jason muttered, finally opening his eyes. "Because if she did do it, it means something is deeply broken inside her." "But what if she didn't?" Gina leaned forward. "What if we're blaming an innocent girl, our own child? Doesn't that break something in us, too?" Jason looked at her. Gina could see the pain flashing in his eyes. "The evidence, Gina. The testimony. The timing. We've spent weeks going over it. There's nothing to defend." "She was never allowed to speak for herself," Gina snapped, slamming her palm lightly on the armrest. "She was dragged and thrown into the dungeon like an animal. No trial, no proper hearing, no investigation. Does that sound like justice to you?" Jason didn't answer right away. "This sounds suspicious," Gina continued. "She's just a girl, Jason. A girl who has been alone in a dark cell for something she may not have even done. Doesn't that torment you?" Jason closed his eyes again, this time longer, every second. Before another word could be spoken, the door opened. James stepped in with a sad expression on his face. He looked at his parents, hesitating. Jason straightened slightly. "What is it?" "It's Kathy," James said. "I went to the dungeon, just to see. She's not doing well." Gina stood instantly. "What do you mean?" "She looks terrible," James said, walking farther into the room. "She's pale and heavily injured. Her body is filled with bruises. Her lips are cracked. I tried cleaning her wounds, but every movement hurt her." Gina's hands flew to her mouth. Tears filled up in her eyes. "She's malnourished, Dad. I could feel her wolf's presence, weak but still there. And yet they're not even allowing her get treatment. They don't even care." Jason's entire body stiffened. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" he asked. "I didn't know it was that bad until I saw her," James admitted. "That night," Jason muttered, his eyes narrowing in thought. "There was a last-minute change in the patrol roster. I remember questioning it, but didn't press the issue. Said it was Kane's directive." "Do you think?" James began, but his father raised a hand. "I want you to look into it," Jason ordered. "Quietly. The warriors who were on duty the night Elder Alyosha was killed, find out who replaced whom. Look into their affiliations, anyone acting suspicious, anyone close to Violet." James nodded. "Yes, sir." Jason stood, and for the first time in weeks there was fire in his eyes again. Not confusion, not exhaustion, purpose. "I'm going to see Alpha Kane." Gina stepped forward and grabbed his arm gently. "Be careful." Jason looked at her. "If there's even a chance that Kathy is innocent, I won't let her rot in that dungeon another day. Not if I can help it. She's our daughter." He pressed a kiss to Gina's forehead, then nodded once at James. As the beta turned and walked toward the door, the air in the room shifted. The truth wasn't going to stay buried much longer. The corridor was empty, except from James's footsteps echoing. He was halfway to the warrior barracks to investigate. He wanted to free Kathy more than anyone. He knew she was innocent. But just as he turned the next corner, a familiar presence stood at the end of the hall. Alpha Kane. James slowed, straightening his back, even as his fists curled. Kane stood in his usual black attire with his arms crossed. There was no mistaking the heavy tension that instantly bloomed between them. They hadn't spoken face to face since Kathy was thrown in the dungeons. "James," Kane said flatly, "I heard you've been snooping." James stopped a few feet away. "You call checking in on my sister snooping?" Kane's jaw twitched. "Kathy is a suspect in the murder of a high-ranking elder. She's being treated accordingly. I won't tolerate interference, especially from you." "And I won't sit back while you let Violet roam free," James retorted. "Kathy is wasting away in a damn dungeon while your so-called mistress parades around like a saint. You're supposed to protect your own." Kane's voice dropped. Still, it was filled with authority. "Watch your tone." James took a step forward. "Or what? You'll toss me into the dungeons, too?" The air around them was filled with dominance. For a moment, neither moved. Both men radiated power. Kane's alpha energy clashed with James's anger. Then Kane exhaled, slow and heavy. His expression darkened. "You don't understand the weight of leadership," Kane said. "This isn't about what I want, it's about justice. My personal feelings don't factor into this." James scoffed. "Don't lie to me. Kathy is your mate. And yet you let Violet manipulate this entire pack while the woman who is supposed to be your wife is tortured like a criminal." Kane flinched, barely, but James caught it. "She killed an elder," Kane said. "No one saw her do it. Violet said she was there. That Omega servant said she saw Kathy enter the chambers, not that she committed murder. That's not proof. That's convenient coincidence." Kane's eyes sharpened. His lips pressed into a thin line. "It's not your place to question my judgment." James shook his head. "No, it's yours to protect the innocent until proven guilty. You think Kathy is some cold-blooded killer? You know her better than that. She can barely hurt a fly." Silence fell between them. Kane looked away for the briefest moment. His jaw ticked and his fingers flexed at his side as if fighting some internal battle. Then his voice returned, harsher this time. "I will not allow personal bias to cloud my leadership. This pack needs order, not sentiment. I will handle this, James. Stay out of it." James stared at him for a long time, then took another bold step closer. "You're making a mistake, one you'll regret." Kane's eyes snapped back to his. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you," James said, "because if Kathy dies under your watch, no amount of leadership or laws will cleanse your conscience." The two men, toe-to-toe, chests heaving, neither backing down, one out of love and the other out of authority. But something flickered in Kane's eyes. Pain, maybe. Guilt. He masked it quickly, straightening his posture, but James had already seen it. Without another word, Kane turned and walked past him. James watched him go. The truth would come out. It had to. Kane's POV. "The silence of my office used to bring me peace. Not today." Jason stood stiffly in front of my desk with his hands clasped behind his back and his eyes trained on the floor like he was choosing his next words carefully. "The patrol shift change," he started. I barely looked up from the map on my desk. "What about it?" Jason shifted on his feet. "You approved it a few days ago? Said Violet suggested it? Said she claimed the warriors would be better rested, more alert." At the mention of her name, I froze. Violet? I remembered that conversation like it had happened moments ago. She'd stood in my office, speaking of efficiency and safety like she actually gave a damn. And gods, I'd agreed. Without question, without hesitation, like a fool. But now that Jason had dragged it back up, it hit me like a damn brick to the chest. The timing. It had been too perfect, too convenient. The shift change had pulled my best warriors to the eastern perimeter, leaving the western trail where the ambush had taken place, vulnerable. Deliberately so? No, I clenched my jaw. "Don't go there," I warned myself. My wolf didn't listen. "She planned it," my wolf argued. His voice growled low and deep in my mind. "Shut up," I snapped. "She set it up. Used you. Used your trust, your name, to put those warriors in the line of fire." My heart pounded. She wouldn't she? Jason's voice pulled me back. "Alpha?" I met his eyes. "It was my decision," I said flatly. "I gave the order." Jason frowned. But she brought it to you. I said it was my decision. He didn't argue, but the tension in his shoulders made it clear he wasn't convinced. My wolf paced, restless and wild behind my ribs. Jason cleared his throat again. James received a mind link this morning from one of the warriors on night duty. He claims he saw someone resembling Violet enter the elders' chambers the night they were attacked. My heart stopped. The world went still. Violet, I stood so fast my chair nearly toppled over. Who else knows? No one, just James, the warrior, and now me. Keep it that way. Jason's eyes narrowed. Are you serious? I said, keep it quiet. My voice was low, but it was steel. Final. He didn't push back this time, but he didn't relax either. Alpha, he said after a beat. Kathy, if there's even a chance Violet's involved, shouldn't we release her? She's still recovering in the hospital. She's no longer in the dungeon, I said. She was transferred last night. Then maybe I should talk to her. No, I snapped. Slowly, I was losing patience. Jason blinked at the edge in my tone. I didn't care. My blood was boiling. I didn't need anyone making assumptions I wasn't ready to face. Why not? He asked carefully. You still don't believe her pup is yours? I scoffed, dragging a hand through my hair. She claims it is. She looks at me like I'm supposed to just know, but I don't. There's no scent tying me to that child. Jason frowned. That's not always conclusive. I looked at him sharply. Don't you dare try to tell me how a father should feel. If that pup was mine, if I'd know, I'd feel it. Smell it, something. Jason held my stare for a long, then he looked away silent. I sneered. What? Nothing to say now? Still nothing. Typical. My temper flared hot. Get out! Jason's head jerked back slightly, but he nodded once. Without a word, he turned and left, closing the door quietly behind him. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. I leaned against my desk, breathing hard. My wolf raged against the bars of my restraint, clawing to be let loose. I slammed my fist against the desk, breaking the edge. My breath came in short, heavy gasps. I didn't want to believe it. Not about Violet, not about Kathy, not about the pup. But the pieces were starting to fall together, and what they painted was an ugly, twisted truth. I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted. Like everything I'd built, everything I thought I knew, was starting to rot from the inside out. And I had let it happen. I had to find out the truth. After Jason left my office, I sat in silence for what felt like hours. My fingers were digging into the edge of my desk, and I didn't even realize it until the wood creaked beneath the pressure. My thoughts all over the place, and I couldn't control them no matter how much I tried. The more I tried to rationalize, the more my wolf got mad at me. He was right there, baring his teeth inside me. Stop pretending, he said to me. I ignored him again. I had to. If I didn't, I'd lose my grip completely. I didn't mean to leave the office. One second I was pacing the floor, the next I found myself walking out of the office and down the corridor as I made my way to the hospital wing. And then, there she was, Kathy. She was curled up on the narrow hospital bed like a child who had been through war. Her hair was damp against her temple, her lips were pale, and her arms were wrapped tightly around herself like she was trying to hold her soul together. My breath hitched before I even reached the door. I stood there, staring. What was I even doing? She wasn't supposed to matter. She wasn't supposed to still look like that, like a piece of me. My feet moved on their own, quietly, slowly. I didn't say a word as I reached her side. I didn't trust myself to. I just reached out. My hand brushed her forehead, checking for a fever. That was all. Just a simple, necessary action. At least that's what I told myself. But my wolf, he howled in triumph. You care. You never stopped. Shut up, I muttered under my breath. My hand lingered longer than it should have. She's your mate. No, I growled lowly. She's a liar, a manipulative little... But the words felt hollow. They always did when I was near her. She stirred at the sound of my voice. Her eyelashes fluttered open, and for a brief second her eyes locked on mine. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Not hate, not anger. Surprise, then fear. That shattered me more than I expected. She blinked quickly, as though unsure if I was real. Kane? Her voice was soft, raspy. Did I do something wrong again? I froze. That question, that damn question. What the hell had I done to make her think like that? I took a step back and my hand fell away like I'd touched fire. My fists clenched at my sides as shame spread in my gut. Was she really afraid of me now? Kathy's pove. A gentle warmth brushed against my forehead, like a summer breeze slipping through a crack in a closed window. For a moment, I let myself lean into it, craving the comfort. My eyelids fluttered open slowly. At first, my vision was blurry, only to clear into a familiar face, Kane. He was leaning over me, close enough that I could see every detail. The dark strands of his hair falling over his furrowed brows, the sharp line of his jaw tense, his beautiful blue eyes, his lips pressed into a thin line. I blinked up at him, disoriented, and my heart betrayed me. It leapt with a desperate, reckless hope. He's here, he's checking on me, he cares. But then I saw it, the emptiness in his eyes, cold, detached, not a hint of tenderness. The warmth I'd felt moments ago had never truly been his. It was a trick of the body. The man I loved, my husband, was not here for me. Only for the child in my womb. I curled up instinctively, wrapping my arms around my stomach as if shielding the one thing I had that might still matter to him. My voice was fragile, barely more than a whisper. "Kane," I whispered. Did I do something wrong again?" He didn't answer right away, just stared. That same unreadable expression carved into his face. I bit my lip, feeling scared. Then, suddenly, he spoke. "Kathy," he said in a low tone, almost too quiet to hear, "tell me the truth. Did you really have nothing to do with Elder Alyosha's death?" My mouth parted in shock. I stared at him. "Is that what this is about?" "Not my health. Not the baby. Not me. Just suspicion. Just accusations." I tried to speak, but no sound came out at first. "How do you answer when the person you love thinks you're capable of murder?" I swallowed hard, struggling to form words that wouldn't drown in my emotion. I didn't. Before I could finish, movement caught my eye. The door creaked open, and Violet stepped in like a ghost. Her eyes scanned the room, wide and glistening with what looked like concern, but I knew better. I'd seen this play before. "Kane?" she said. Her voice was soft and breathless, as if she hadn't expected to find us like this. "What's going on?" The timing, as always, was perfect. She stood in the doorway like a wounded bird, dressed in soft pastels. Her hair was carefully tousled for that effortlessly tragic look. Her gaze landed on me, sick, lying in bed, and for a split second her mask slipped. I saw the glint in her eye, the one that told me she knew exactly what she was doing. A bitter laugh bubbled in my throat, but I swallowed it down. We were the married couple, Kane and I. We had stood before our people, made our vows before everyone, and the moon goddess herself, promised to love each other forever and protect the pack, shared a bond. And yet, here I was, the outsider in my own home, in my own marriage, because his heart had never been mine to begin with. Violet had stolen it long ago. Violet's eyes filled with tears, her lower lip trembling. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said, barely holding herself together. "I was just worried about Kathy's health. I wanted to make sure she was okay." "Worried about me?" I almost laughed out loud. "She's good, really good. She had always been the delicate one, the broken one, the one who needed rescuing. And Kane, ever the noble alpha, never could resist the damsel in distress." She turned to him now. The tears slipped down her cheeks with such theatrical perfection that even I had to grudgingly admire it. "Every night I close my eyes and I'm back there," she whispered. "The wolf poison, the beatings, the things they said to me. How I'd never be worthy. How I'd never be Luna." Her voice broke, and she covered her face with her hands, sobbing. I clenched the blanket beneath me till my knuckles went white. It was always like this. No matter what I did, how much I endured, how much I gave, Violet's pain would always matter more than mine. And Kane, his whole body shifted, his hard edges softened. His gaze, once cold and guarded, melted into something warm, sympathetic, protective. "Violet," he murmured, stepping toward her, "you shouldn't be pushing yourself like this." She looked up at him through tear-glazed lashes. I couldn't sleep knowing Kathy wasn't well. He reached out without hesitation, taking her hand. That broke something in me. He had touched me minutes ago, yes, but not like this. That touch had been mechanical and cold, but this was filled with something he never gave me anymore. Gentleness, compassion, care. "Kane?" I said, trying to remind him I was still here, still breathing, still hurting, but he didn't look back, not once. He wrapped an arm around Violet's shoulder and led her out the door, murmuring reassurances I couldn't hear. My chest was tightened. I felt so hurt that I could feel my throat closing up. I couldn't breathe past the ache that burned behind my eyes. I sat up slowly, clutching the sheets as I stared at the now empty doorway. The silence left in their wake was louder than anything I'd ever heard. He could care, he could love, he could protect, just not me. Not his wife. Not the woman carrying his child. A sob clawed up my throat, and I bit my lip hard to keep it down. But when I felt the first kick, tiny fluttering, I couldn't hold back anymore. I placed a trembling hand over my belly, a part of Cain that I carried alone. Hot tears spilled over my cheeks. The pain wasn't sharp anymore. It was dull, numb, like I'd been bleeding for too long and had finally accepted the wound would never heal. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the life inside me. "I'm sorry it's like this. I'll protect you, even if it's just me." And as the last sob escaped my lips, the room swallowed me in silence once more. Cain's povee. Violet wrapped herself around me, burying her face in my chest as if she were trying to disappear into me. I felt her tears before I heard them, hot, relentless. Each one soaked through the fabric of my shirt like they were burning straight into my skin. I hadn't even had time to unpack my thoughts from the border patrol when she met me halfway through the gates and held on to me like I was her only lifeline. "I don't want it anymore," she whispered. Voice cracking. "I don't want the Luna position." I froze. "What?" Her grip around my neck tightened, almost desperate. Her lips trembled as she spoke through her sobs. I thought I wanted it because it would mean something, that maybe I could fix things, find a purpose, but everything I do just makes it worse. I keep hurting people, hurting her. And today, Cain, today I heard them, she said. I didn't speak, didn't move. I only listened. And I held her. I heard the pack talking about Kathy. Her voice cracked again, barely a breath. They were saying it was only a matter of time before she was punished. Some even said executed. And the way they spoke about her, it was like she was already dead. Her body started to tremble harder in my arms. "I don't want this title, Cain," she cried. "Not if it comes with so much blood. I don't want to be Luna if it means watching people I care about suffer just to keep up the appearance of being strong." My heart clenched. I tightened my arms around her without thinking. "I don't care about the title," I murmured against her hair. "Violet, Luna or not, you are still the most important person in this pack to me. I will protect you no matter what." She sobbed harder at that, and the sound made my heart ache. But then her hands flattened against me, moving up to press gently over my chest like she could feel my heartbeat. She looked up with red eyes, eyes that searched mine for something I didn't know how to name. Her next words took the breath right out of me. "You've fallen for her, haven't you?" I stiffened. "What?" "Kathy," she said. "You've fallen for Kathy." "No," I said instantly, too fast. I would never fall for someone who could be that cruel. But even as the lie passed my lips, my wolf growled in protest. "Liar. You remember how you reacted when she was with James. You nearly lost your mind." I clenched my jaw. My fists curled at my sides. Damn him. Damn my wolf for seeing what I was too stubborn to admit. I had felt something dangerous, something real. The way Kathy had looked at me with those scared eyes. How her voice cracked when she said she didn't do it. How broken she looked when no one believed her. How I couldn't stand the thought of another man touching her. It wasn't just possessiveness, it was something deeper. I didn't answer. Not out loud. Violet's hand moved slowly across my chest again. She looked tired, too tired. I knew she'd been bottling it all in since I left this morning. Guilt, pressure, fear. It was bleeding through every inch of her now. "You're tense," she said softly, her palm sliding downward. "Too tense, too exhausted. Let me help." I stared down at her as she began to reach for my belt. "Violet, I'm not trying to seduce you," she said quickly, meeting my eyes. "I swear, I just want to help you relax. You've been carrying too much alone." And just for a moment, I believed her. I believed her sincerity, her kindness. But then that same feeling returned. That familiarity, the warmth. The way she used to crawl into my arms when we were younger and tell me she'd never let anyone hurt me. And yet, it wasn't right. Not anymore. I caught her wrist before she could go further and gently pushed her back. "I can't," I said. "Not while things between Kathy and I are still unresolved. That's the least I owe both of you." Violet blinked, then let out a breath that was part laughter, part something else. "I told you I wasn't trying to seduce you," she said with a sad smile. But I appreciate your honesty." There was a long pause. Then I remembered something Jason had said before I left that had been pulling at the back of my mind. "Violet," I said slowly, "did you meet with Alyosha before he died?" She flinched. It was quick, so quick that I would have missed it if I hadn't been watching her closely. But it was there. A tiny hint of fear behind her eyes, a moment of hesitation too sharp to ignore. "No," she said quickly, too quickly. "Of course not. Why would I?" My blood ran cold. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I just stared at her, trying to read the truth behind her mask. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure I knew her anymore. Was James lying when he said Kathy had nothing to do with Alyosha's death? Or was this all just another game of lies? That was when James's voice burst into my mind like a bullet. He was talking to me through the mind link. "Alpha Kane, we got her. The Omega who was taking care of Elder Alyosha. She was caught trying to cross the border." I straightened. "What?" "She tried to run. We're bringing her in now." I felt Violet shift next to me, probably sensing my sudden change in posture. But I couldn't look at her. Not anymore. Why would the Omega run? What the hell did she know? And more importantly, who was she running from? The weight in my chest grew heavier. I had to find out now. Kane's peau vive. My fists clenched at my sides, trembling with the effort it took not to let my rage show. I stared down at the trembling figure curled up in the corner, the Omega servant. Her skin was pale. Her eyes were wide, full of fear that went bone deep. She looked like a ghost who hadn't realized she was already dead. She hadn't said a word since we brought her in. Her silence screamed louder than any confession could have. "Why did you try to escape?" I demanded. I can't," she whispered. "Please." "Who are you afraid of?" I pressed, narrowing my eyes. "Tell me the truth." She shook her head violently, hugging her knees tighter, lips trembling. "If I talk, I'm dead. I'm already dead." My patience was getting thinner by the moment. I stepped closer. My shadow fell over her. My wolf snarled in my chest, demanding submission. I let a small wave of alpha power roll off me, not even half of what I could unleash. And it was enough to send her crawling backward until her back hit the wall. "Speak," I growled in my alpha tone. "Now." She let out a strangled sob and crumbled. Her forehead hit the floor. "I saw her. I saw who went into Elder Alyosha's room that night." My breath caught. "Who?" I barked. She looked up slowly. It wasn't Kathy. I lied. I lied because I was afraid. The last person to go into his room, it was Violet." A deafening silence filled the room. I didn't hear her. I couldn't have. "What?" I said slowly. She was shaking uncontrollably now. "I saw her, Alpha. Violet. She was wearing that dark cloak with the silver edge. She went in late. I was going to fetch the laundry by the hall. Then I heard the door slam shut. I saw her, clear as day." "You're wrong," I said flatly, but my own voice sounded distant. "I swear it," she cried. I didn't say anything because I thought she'd kill me too. She looked like she'd done something awful. I hid. I didn't breathe. Then the next day everyone thought it was Kathy, and I thought maybe she'd be safe if I said nothing. But I couldn't take it. I tried to leave. "Please don't kill me." I turned away. Her words played over and over in my head. I couldn't believe it. Violet, not Kathy. I staggered slightly, gripping the table for balance. My head spun. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. Violet. The woman I trusted more than anyone. The woman who, suddenly, it all clicked into place, like dominoes falling one after another. That day, she insisted we switch the patrol route. I thought it was just Violet being thorough, but she knew where Alyosha would be. She held me when I blamed Kathy. She said she saw Kathy there that night. Gods, she let me blame her. I felt sick. I stormed out of the interrogation room with my wolf roaring in my chest. He was furious, betrayed. My pace quickened with each step. My claws threatened to rip through my skin. I needed answers. Now. I found her in the garden behind the east wing, the place she went to when she wanted peace. She stood by the fountain, hugging herself against the breeze. Her long hair fluttered gently in the wind, and when she turned to look at me, her eyes widened. "Kane?" she asked. I didn't stop walking until I was toe-to-toe with her. "Tell me it's not true," I growled. "Tell me you didn't go to Alyosha's room that night." Tell that her breath caught. She paled. "You lied to me," I said, stepping closer. "You let me blame Kathy while you kept this secret." She closed her eyes. One tear escaped and trailed down her cheek. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she whispered. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. Then why, Violet? I barked. Why didn't you say anything? Why go to him in the first place? I went to ask about the phoenix mark, she choked out. I thought maybe he knew something. He was one of the oldest elders. He might have known where it came from. My chest tightened. The phoenix mark, the very reason my world had started to unravel. He snapped the moment I asked, she continued. He said I wasn't supposed to know, that I should never have seen the mark on me. He attacked me, Kane. He tried to kill me. She took a deep, shuddering breath. I panicked. I fought back. I hit him and he fell. He didn't move. I didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted him to stop. I stared at her, the woman I had known since I was a boy, now shaking and crying in front of me. This woman had once shielded me from a rogue when I was too young to fight. She had carried my bleeding body back to safety. She saved me. And now she stood before me, broken by the guilt of something she hadn't even meant to do. Kathy had suffered the punishment that should have been hers, but Violet had suffered in silence for 5 years, carrying the burden of a crime she never wanted to commit. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her. She sobbed into my chest. I'll handle this, I whispered into her hair. You won't be punished. Not again. Kathy's been through hell, but she owes you her life. I'll protect both of you. But... No buts, I said, pulling away to look into her tear-filled eyes. It's over. I'll tell James and Jason to shut down the investigation. Alyosha's death was an accident. That's how history will remember it. Her lips trembled. Why are you doing this for me? Because you once carried me out of hell, I murmured. Now it's my turn. Later, I did exactly what I promised. I met with Jason and James, dismissed the investigation, and declared Elder Alyosha's death an unfortunate accident due to old age and a fall. No one would question me, not when the peace of the pack depended on it. But my heart hadn't settled. I found myself walking down the hospital hallway to Kathy's room. My chest felt tight with guilt. I had let her suffer. I let her carry the weight of the murder. Her body had been broken, her reputation destroyed. My wolf growled, snapping at the chains around my heart. Go in, now, face her, he urged me. I raised my hand to knock. Then I heard it, voices inside. One of them, James. Rage flared in my chest. What was he doing there? Kathy's pove. The smell of the hospital room was starting to feel like a second home to me. My days here had settled into a rhythm. James was here. He was my anchor during these long, silent hours. His visits were like lifebuoys thrown to me in an ocean. He was kind and patient. I loved his visits. It was comforting, but it also reminded me of how isolated I had become, how far I had drifted from the life I once knew. That morning he had brought good news. News that made my heart flutter with hope. He told me that the police had caught an important witness, someone who had seen Violet kill Alyosha. My breath caught in my throat when he told me. The possibility of justice, of truth finally coming to light, felt like the first real breath of air after being submerged underwater for far too long. I couldn't contain my excitement. Without thinking, I threw my arms around him, pressing my face into his chest. His arms wrapped around me, holding me tight as if he could feel the weight of my relief. I breathed in his familiar scent. I was grateful for him. He was someone who had been there through everything. Then the door slammed open. The sound was loud, and I jerked back, startled. Kane stood in the doorway with an annoyed look on his face. His glare was cold enough to freeze the blood in my veins. His eyes moved between the two of us, James and me, and his eyes narrowed. His lips curled into a sneer. Am I interrupting something? Kane's voice was thick with sarcasm. I froze. My heart began to beat faster, but this time, it was fear that made my pulse quicken. It wasn't the kind of fear that I had when Violet was near. No, this was the fear of knowing that no matter what I said or did, Kane would always twist things, would always find a way to make me feel like the guilty party. I opened my mouth to explain, to tell him that nothing was happening, but before I could, James spoke up. His voice was calm. We're siblings, Kane, James said. Kane's eyes turned to James, then flicked back to me. He sneered. Siblings? You're not related by blood. The words hit me harder than I expected. The insinuation, the way his voice twisted the situation into something filthy, it made my skin crawl. My face flushed, both with anger and shame that I shouldn't have felt. James had always treated me like a little sister. But Kane's mind was so poisoned by his own insecurities that he couldn't understand what real affection looked like. Before I could retort, James shot back. James was usually a calm person, but right now his voice filled with the kind of fury that only came when he was truly pissed off. Maybe you're so used to cheating and betrayal that you see it in everyone else too. But I'm not you, Kane, James said. Kane's eyes narrowed, but before he could say anything, James turned to me. Take care of yourself, Kathy, and take care of the little pup growing inside you, he added. His tone softened when he mentioned the baby. He nodded at Kane as he got up and walked away from me. Then, James deliberately shouldered past him on his way out, not sparing him a second glance. The door slammed behind him, and the air in the room grew so heavy it felt like I couldn't breathe. Kane's presence seemed to fill every inch of the space now. His eyes were sharp on me as if I were his prey. I could almost feel the heat of his anger, his possessiveness, as he walked toward me. Each step he took sent a chill down my spine. Remember your place, Kathy, Kane growled. You're not the one in control here. I wanted to snap back at him, wanted to scream at him that he was the one who had ruined everything between us, that he was the one who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. My anger boiled over, and I stood up straight, looking him in the eye, refusing to cower. You've got some nerve, don't you? I bit out. You think you can just walk in here, all high and mighty after everything you've done, and lecture me about my place? Kane froze. His eyes became filled with something close to guilt, or maybe it was regret. But it was quick. It vanished as quickly as it had come, and all that was left was the same cold mask he wore so well. I'm sorry, he muttered, though the words came out as if they were being forced from him. I shouldn't have said that. I'll make it up to you, Kathy. I promise. I almost laughed, but the bitterness that was inside me was too much to choke down. Make it up to me? What could he possibly do to fix what he had broken? What could he do to undo the betrayal, the lies, the years of manipulation? But before I could speak, a sharp pain hit my abdomen, sudden and intense. It was so painful that it stole the breath from my lungs. I gasped, and my hand moved to my stomach, but Kane was already there. Ho's expression turned into one of panic. Kathy, his voice was cracked with genuine concern. Are you okay? The tenderness in his tone made my chest tighten, and for a split second everything else disappeared. The pain, the anger, the frustration, it all seemed to fade into the background, leaving just the two of us standing there. For a moment, it felt like we were a couple again, like the years of torment had never happened. But I knew it wasn't real. We weren't a couple. We never would be again. I winced, clutching my stomach, and Kane's eyes softened. He moved closer, his hand hovering near me as if he wanted to comfort me but didn't know how. The vulnerability in his gaze was almost too much to bear. I felt a flicker of something inside me, something I couldn't explain, but it wasn't enough to make me forget everything. I needed him to mark me. The baby needed him. But it didn't change the truth of what had happened. With a sudden burst of courage, I grabbed his collar, pulling him down to me. I kissed him. My lips crashed against his with an intensity that surprised us both. My heart raced as the world around us seemed to disappear. For a moment, I told myself this was all for the baby. It wasn't for me, not really. I had to force myself to believe that, to remind myself that my actions had a purpose. But the truth was, I wasn't sure anymore.